The stadium hosted the national championship in Kendo, Japanese bamboo fencing. Our hero Aiden's fight was in full swing. He dealt the decisive blow to his opponent. The referee announced that fencer Aiden Collins had finished all rounds within 20 seconds each. The judges have seen many fencers in their time, but never such a one. This is undoubtedly an absolute master. Will people ever see talent like this again? There is no one like Aiden in Korea or anywhere else in the world. The hero took off his helmet and showed his calm, imperturbable face. 3 years later, a brawl occurred at the Zeus Club. A few guys wanted to take Aiden down. They took up arms and decided to attack from all sides so that he would definitely not be able to fight back. The guys counted to 3 and rushed at the hero, but Aiden cut them all down with quick and precise swings of his katana. The guy who was suffering from pain on the floor asked who our hero was. An important man with a cigar came into the room. He clapped, saying how dangerous Aiden was. He just cut people into pieces. The man said that one of them would die and suggested that they unite. But he killed Aiden's sister, and because of him, his mother died. The hero is determined to fight to the death. Holding the katana to the man's face, he repeated his words that one of them was going to die. 2 years ago, in Gangneung, Aiden put his mother to bed and turned off the lights. They said on TV that the economic situation is hitting small businesses hard. In one of the districts of Seoul, fast food restaurants have been completely eliminated. Even kendo and taekwondo clubs. There was also a wave of burglaries and murders, targeting single women living in studio apartments. Surviving victims are outraged that it will take many more murders before the police get to work on these criminals. Aiden turned off the TV and went up to his room. He walked over to the cabinet with kendo trophies. The hero took the cup from the shelf and put it in the box. Suddenly, the telephone on the table rang. The master was alarmed that Aiden had left the sport. The man said to call him Mr. Director. What kind of master is he? He said that Aiden's talent definitely needed to be put to use. If he wants to make money, the only way is to open his own kendo dojo. The hero replied that he needed a regular job. The director said that he had his own dojo, so he could arrange for Aiden to be a teacher and the salary wouldn't be bad. It's enough for the hero that he hasn't been forgotten. His mom can't handle the restaurant alone. He plans to help her. Gookbap restaurant. That means Aiden will have to put the broth on to boil every day at dawn and work more than 12 hours a day. The hero interrupted, saying that he would call back. He had to pack his things. In the boxes, Aiden found a photo of himself as a child from a kendo competition, and then he looked at the photos with his sister. Memories came flooding back. Chloe was happy on her admission day and took selfies with her family. Look at the photo. She asked why her brother always has such a face and when will he smile. It's annoying. No wonder he still hasn't gotten married. Mom asked Chloe if she really decided to live alone in Seoul. The daughter replied that it was safe there and there was no need to worry. In Seoul, there are a huge number of provincial applicants like her, and they find a place for themselves. Suddenly, Aiden told his sister that if something happened, she should draw an infinity sign. When they were still at school, a tragedy happened. Chloe then asked her brother why he didn't run away. Aiden smiled and said because he loves her endlessly. He told me to draw the infinity sign again. An 8, only horizontal. Chloe snorted. Did her brother really think anything could happen to her? What a family they really were. Suddenly she noticed Sua, her friend, passing by. Chloe introduced her to her mother, saying that Sua would also be renting a studio and living alone. The woman calmed down. Then Chloe suggested taking a photo of the 4 of us. Aiden put the photo back in the box when he received a message. He accidentally dropped the figurine while picking up the phone. News of murders and robberies of lonely women in studio apartments flashed through my head, and all against the background that the sister did not answer. The hero wrote that he apologized but had to come. Aiden tried to call her, but the answering machine said that the subscriber could not take the call. Then the hero dialed the emergency number 112. Meanwhile, the robbers finished with another apartment. The second criminal showed some crap. The notebook has the same drawing hundreds of times on the pages. This lady is probably crazy, but it doesn't matter. The robbers took everything valuable and ran away. The thieves said that her brother still calls her. He writes that he will come because she does not answer the calls. They threw away the notebook and slammed the door. And now in the apartment, right in the living room, there was a corpse. It was Chloe's corpse. And under her feet was a notebook with hundreds of infinity signs and the clover that Aiden had picked for her. Chloe's funeral took place very soon. The hero noticed Sua standing nearby. Aiden asked if she wanted to burn incense. The girl refused. She just felt really bad right now. Sua asked where their mother was. Aiden replied that she had to lie down because her legs couldn't hold her up. Sua said not to see her off, she would go there herself. The girl looked at the wreath for Chloe from a certain flash. Sua turned to Aiden and asked to talk to him, just not here. They went to the vending machine and he bought her a coffee and asked her what she wanted to talk about. Sua looks at him intently and asks how this is possible. He doesn't look sad at all. Chloe said that Aiden always had the same expression on his face, like a psychopath. Now Sua was convinced that she was right. The hero was again flooded with memories from that day at school. His sister asked him why he didn't run away. Aiden patted her head. She smiled and replied because he loved her. Then his sister realized that he was not an unfeeling psychopath. The hero asked again what Sua wanted to talk about, but she screams. She cannot understand how one can be so calm, because it was not just someone who died, but her own sister. Aiden will have to go back to work. He was only released briefly for the funeral. If Sua has nothing to say, he will go. She also quickly took her bag and left. 3 days later, Aiden was reviewing the donation report. A certain Sean White, a Flash sales representative, donated a full $1,000,001, which is several times more than anyone else. The hero began to look at his sister's things, her clothes and cosmetics. Suddenly, Aiden noticed a box with notebooks, books, and notepads. There he saw a photo of Chloe with Sua in a place called Flash. And turning the page, Aiden's face darkened. It was that same spread with hundreds of infinity signs. At his sister's university, the hero was also completely immersed in his thoughts. The students noticed him and asked who he was. They had never seen him before. There he waited for Sua. The girl was surprised and asked what he was doing there. Aiden showed the photo and asked where it was taken. Sua replied that she was at a club, but the hero corrected her that it was not a club. The girl began to remember. That day, they once again came to the Flash bar with Chloe. They were going up the elevator when Chloe noticed Sua's phone. She was texting a guy about that from today onwards, for 3 days, there will be a bikini event at the bar, and if you come before 6 p.m., you will get a free dinner. Chloe snorted and asked if it was really necessary to advertise the event so vulgarly, but there was no need to peek. Chloe just hates writing sales copy. Sua said not to worry, it's just a click away, copy and paste. The girls entered the staff room where various bikini sets were already hanging. Chloe showed off in front of the camera and said that Sua looks beautiful today. She suggested taking a photo as a keepsake. Sua replied that Chloe was crazy. What if someone saw it later? Chloe got this camera from a client. Why shouldn't she indulge? The one from the Honda Club. That's the night this photo was taken. Sua said she and Chloe were working at a nightclub where alcohol and cocktails are served. The owner of the club usually stands behind the counter and talks to the customers. Sua said that it was he who sent that wreath to the funeral. Aiden asked if it was a strip bar. Sua denied, saying it wasn't that kind of place. Their job is just to sit next to the clients, nothing more. They are not allowed to touch the girls, and any perverts are immediately kicked out of the club. Sua took this job to pay for her studies. Aiden asked if that was all, if nothing had been hidden from him. Sua seemed like she wanted to add something, but she noticed the appearance of a person outside the cafe window. She cringed and told Aiden that was it. The girl stood up and said goodbye, justifying herself by saying that she had to go to class. Now everything fell into place for the hero. It was definitely not suicide. At the police station, Aiden told them his sister had been murdered. The officer reluctantly asked if there was any evidence. The hero replied that he and his sister had agreed to warn each other with the infinity sign when they were in danger. The investigator asked how they exchanged this sign. They had decided to send the number 8 back in high school. The investigator was surprised that Chloe warned her brother rather than calling the police. Sister couldn't tell Aiden about working at the bar, so it looks like she just wrote it down in a notebook. The investigator sighed. It looked like they had already passed, and it seemed Chloe had been cremated. An autopsy would be necessary to understand whether it was a murder or a suicide, but when the initial death report came in, Aiden thought it was suicide and opposed the autopsy. The hero said his mother was against it. Well, the officer replied that the cremated body could not be brought back. They could not start an investigation without leads. Aiden thinks it has something to do with his sister's job. He said that maybe we could at least question everyone associated with the bar. The investigator told Mr. Collins that this would not do. Let Aiden have a good alibi. He is the one who is currently the most suspicious. The policeman asks why the hero's face doesn't move a muscle. Aiden just remains silent. The police need more specifics. Otherwise, they won't start investigating. The hero stood up and left. The investigator hissed. Everyone he met already imagines himself to be an investigator. He was surprised by the nonsense Aiden was talking. The hero left the police station and went to the Samsondo area. Using an online map, he found the very same flash bar. When he got downstairs, the guard asked if he was looking for anyone in particular. Aiden said it was his first time there. Then the worker will show him in. The same Sean was sitting behind the counter talking on the phone. The man was talking about some incident with his boss. Aiden listened to the conversation and thought. There was one basement floor about 20 steps down. The owner stands behind the counter 5 meters from the entrance. In the center of the room, there is a hall and rooms separated by curtains. There is only one entrance for outsiders. Aiden sat down at the bar and a worker immediately came in. She complimented him and asked if it was his first time there. The hero nodded. The girl warned that only conversations were allowed at the bar, no physical contact. And then Aiden asked if the name Chloe Collins sounded familiar to her. The girl thought for a moment and replied that Chloe no longer worked there. The hero wanted her to tell him more, but the worker assured him that Chloe had quit long ago. When she smiled, her eyes betrayed tension, and the corners of her mouth involuntarily drooped. The girl knew something. Aiden selected a drink from the menu and the worker went to pick up his order. The girl ran to the owner in a panic, saying that this guy was looking for a roomie, that is Chloe. Sean thought about it. When Aiden came in, he said it was his first time here. The owner was told there would be no investigation, but the brother appears to be intent on taking matters into his own hands. Investigator Lim warned that this guy was getting on his nerves, so Sean better deal with him quickly. The owner wondered if it was really just one person. The employee suggested simply telling the guest that there were no vacancies and sending him on his way. Sean replied that it was not necessary. Just tell everyone not to talk about Chloe. The owner asked what about Sua. The girl replied that after what happened with Arumi, she no longer came to work. Sean understood. This guest must be trying to dig up something, so the girl just has to pretend she has nothing to do with it. Over a glass of alcohol, Aiden asked all the female employees if they knew anything about Arumi. One replied that she had only been working here for a couple of days, and why was she even interested? The other one doesn't know anything either. She was transferred from another branch, so she doesn't know anything at all. The next one doesn't even know what Arumi is, and the latter irritably said that she didn't know any Arumi and left. Aiden was left alone with 2 bottles of booze. Didn't a single soul know? The first employee looked in and asked if he wanted anything else. The hero replied that he was leaving. The girl offered to pay in cash or by card. Aiden gave her his card and she went to pay. The employee reported to the boss that it seemed the guest did not find out anything. It's now 1:30 in the morning. Sean quickly starts dialing someone's phone number. It's better to deal with this guy so he doesn't wander around. Aiden staggered away and was kindly escorted by the guard. The hero was drunk and walked through the city and stopped at a pole. He picked up some papers from the ground. 3 bandit-looking men were watching him from afar. They followed after Aiden. The hero naturally noticed them, stopped at the pole, pretending to feel ill. And at that time, he began to collect flyers from the ground and put them behind his collar. Suddenly, one of the men put his hand on Aiden's shoulder. The bandits told the drunk guy to follow them. They took the hero to a dark alley and threw him into a wall. The men said he was finished and asked if he would buy them a drink at the pub. There are 3 bandits. The alley is about 1.5 meters wide. It will be difficult to deal with them all at once. Aiden remains silent. He wonders if this is a simple robbery or if the men have their own motives. The hero said that he had no money. No money and wandering around Samsondo? Fat Man told Aiden not to talk nonsense. The man told his comrades to break the hero's legs so that he could no longer walk around here. It dawned on Aiden that they might be somehow connected to the bar where he had tried to find out about Chloe. The man said that each hit would cost the boy 10 if he survived it all. Suddenly, Aiden began to take out a roll of paper from his hood, and then he pointed it at the robbers. They burst out laughing. They wonder what the hero will do with this paper. They say that he clearly took a sip. Now Aiden gives the men a chance to escape. They laughed again, and the leader commanded them to stop chatting and get down to business. Sean wonders if the bandits have already decided everything. He decided to go check the cameras. Sean walked into the back office, rolled up his sleeves to reveal his tattoos, and sat down in front of the computer. He was surprised that the guy hadn't been finished off yet. Sean said to break his legs, "Why is it taking so long?" On camera, it looked like our hero was holding a knife. Aiden only angered the bandits and attacked first. The hero hit him in the chest with the roll of paper and threw him back. Aiden broke the second guy's nose. Now it's time for the most talkative one, the fat one, to get some. The leader of the gang is confused and doesn't understand what is going on. He yells, pointing at the package, asking what it is. Aiden calmly answers, "Paper." The man got angry. The idiot started it himself. Our hero is to blame for being maimed today. The man took a long knife out of his jacket, but Aiden knocked the weapon out of his hands with a lightning-fast movement. The hero's appearance was terrifying. After all, he was the national kendo champion. The bandits got what they deserved. Sean sank into his chair. Things were clearly not going according to plan. After Aiden dealt with the bandits, he threw away the paper and calmly left. He wandered around the city at night, listening to the sound of rain. Sean left the office, called someone, and said he needed this bastard's address right now. The veins appeared on the man's face and he told his interlocutor to do it right this minute. Aiden is sure that Sua knows something. When they met at the cafe, she left in a hurry. The girl's gaze suddenly became lost and frightened. Aiden looked in the mirror and thought about everything. At that moment, Sua looked out the window. The hero suggested that someone might be following her, and it wasn't by chance that he met those rednecks either. I had to drag one of them to the police station. Sua is definitely not telling us something. Is it dangerous to go looking for her again? Sean Wake was awakened by the phone ringing. The subordinate made inquiries about the older brother and a roomie, that is, Chloe. His name is Aiden Collins. He's currently living in the studio apartment, packing up his things. His mother is in hospital in Gangnam, and Aiden is alone in Seoul. Looks like the mother went down with the news of her daughter's death. Sean doesn't care, so Aiden is in Chloe's apartment. Yeah, he was originally planning on packing her things and moving out, but now he's decided to stay. And this guy is no pushover. He is a kendo champion. In Korea, kendo is considered an active sport. It has no application in life, but still, Aiden is a champion in this sport. The interlocutor asks Sean what to do with it, whether to bury it. But Investigator Lim says there is no need to do anything yet. Sean said to lay low and hung up. Since Aiden is a kendo champion, there is something about him on the internet. The man began searching. And kendo is really not popular in Korea. There are only a couple of short articles about this sport, that's all. Sean threw the phone on the bed and started thinking. Leaving Aiden alone could be dangerous. How can Sean resolve this without making too much noise? Meanwhile, the hero trained hard to stay in shape. On the day of the tragedy, Aiden told his sister that it was over and they could leave. But suddenly Chloe asked, what if this happens again someday? The hero told her to draw the symbol of infinity, or 8. She will do so and leave her brother such a cipher. The brother and sister stood among dozens of corpses in bamboo. Chloe was very scared when Aiden raised his stick and told her not to worry, he would figure it out. And now the hero will deal with them. Suddenly the doorbell rang. It was Sean White. He asked if this was the same customer from yesterday. Aiden said hello and asked what was going on. The man replied that they rented this studio for Chloe as a legal entity. He thought that there was no point in extending the lease and came to an agreement with the owner. But the owner said that someone lives here. Aiden replied that he hadn't finished packing her things yet. At the funeral, a donation of 1 million won was made in the name of Flash's sales representative. Aiden asked the man if he did it. Sean said yes. He heard that Chloe had committed suicide. What a tragedy. Chloe was very popular at the club. Other establishments were constantly sending her offers to lure her over. Sean said that he tried his best to dissuade her, but the girl was still lured to an establishment called 10 Pro. Aiden invited the man home and started asking him about the place. Sean thinks the guy must have heard of it. Among entertainment venues, it's like a boss in a game. Everything is clean there. Sean says the girls just sit and chat with the clients, but there's one catch. He heard that Chloe had a very unpleasant incident there. Maybe it could have been the reason for the suicide. Sean apologized with a pitiful face for not being able to protect her. Aiden noticed the man's hands were fidgeting. He was licking his lips. He was avoiding eye contact. It was obvious he was lying. Sean handed the hero an envelope saying that it was from the heart. Suddenly, Aiden announced that Chloe had been killed. He requested a forensic examination. Her body was not at the funeral. Sean tensed because the forensic examination would show everything. Aiden said that he would pick up Chloe's body from the morgue by tomorrow morning, and the results would most likely be in tomorrow as well. And tomorrow the hero will go to the police to present the results to the investigator. Sean, with a shaking voice, said to call if you need anything. He'll help as much as he can. After this, the man left quickly. As Sean ran to the car, he tried to figure out if this was a bluff or what. It's not clear. Aiden's face is always like stone. But what if it's true? Sean called someone and told them to take the guys and bury this guy that very night. Namely, to kill him in the apartment. Sean told the bandits to clean up after themselves. Aiden is a kendo champion, so we need to take more guys. But he knows them. The guys we already know will make it look like it was suicide. At night, a car with 4 guys drove up to the hero's house. It seems that it was their lot to finish off not only the sister, but also the brother. And in the same place. One asked why 4 were needed this time. The leader replied that it didn't matter. The main thing was that they would raise some dough. Another guy wanted to work faster. He also plans to make it to the restaurant for some hangover soup. They just need to remember their tools and clean up. So the gang entered the house. Aiden took the brush off the mop and hid behind the curtain with the stick. The space to the corridor is free, but in some places it is still cluttered. More than 2 people will not be able to pass. There is a wall on the right, so the hero will only be able to deal with them with a few lunges. Suddenly, the door started to open. Aiden was surprised that they knew the password to the electronic lock. And then he remembered how Sean said that they rented this studio for Chloe as a legal entity, so the hero hid behind the wall and the curtain. Sean called investigator Lim and told him that this asshole ordered a medical examination. He asks if it's a bluff. The cop said it was a bluff. Sean said if the guy wasn't bluffing, they were screwed. That's why he sent the guys. The investigator snorted. It would have been better if Aiden had quietly held the funeral and gone to his canum. He had to make things so complicated. Sean asks for help. Lim said that if everything is done as cleanly as last time, the police will not be able to do anything. The boys have to scrub it all down there until it shines. Sean asked if one would be enough, but no, it would draw attention to Lim. He'd put it on his tab and pay him back later. Sean thinks he'll go to Arumi's apartment in the morning, supposedly asking her brother for the results, and when he finds his body, he'll report it to the police. But what results can there be in the morning? Lim says to go after noon when the work is over. Meanwhile, the criminals have already made their way into the apartment, so you can really get attached to her. They went to the bed, but there was no one on it. What's the matter? They were watching the house. Aiden didn't come out. The bandits searched all the rooms, but the guy was nowhere to be found. One of them said to turn on the light. He was irritated by this blinking motion sensor. And suddenly, as soon as the room was lit up, Aiden was standing behind them. They asked who he was. Well, that's not good. The leader replied that there was nothing to be done. He would have to deal with this and then think about it. Aiden said that if they were going to rob, there was nothing of value here. The leader was surprised. What about nothing valuable but the guy's life? They won't let the hero out. Aiden has nowhere to run. They said not to worry, he'll have better housing in the afterlife. The hero took out a stick and said that he was a master of sports in kendo. But he doesn't want to use this art to maim people, so the criminals have a chance to survive. Aiden told them to get out. They looked at each other and started laughing. The criminals took out their knives, saying that now the hero would die, and they would take care of the rest. It's unfair to beat the weak, so Aiden will finish quickly. One of the robbers was enraged by this and attacked the hero, but he quickly smashed his knife. And then he hit me on the head with a piece of shrapnel. The leader shouts at the guys not to stand still, but to kill this idiot. The boys attacked Aiden with knives, but he quickly knocked their hands away. Thus, he finished off 3. The leader, his hands shaking, asks what it was, and Aiden does the same to him. At dawn, all 4 of them, including the hero, were at the station with investigator Lim. The policeman was surprised because he had checked the criminal records of these guys and they were clean. Aiden repeated once again that they wanted to kill him. The investigator asks if the hero has evidence, video, or anything else. Of course not. Then the police cannot be sure of the veracity of his statements. Lim said that these guys did indeed break the rules, but Aiden used force in self-defense. And this is much more serious. The hero is in shock. The investigator says that he used a weapon and inflicted beatings. One man was hospitalized with a broken collarbone. Legally, Aiden's crime was far more serious. The gang leader shouted that he also needed to go to the hospital. Aiden said he didn't understand. He was just defending himself from the criminals who were after him. He barely managed to escape and report it to the police. The investigator said that the law doesn't work that way in Korea. At the moment, our hero is a suspect in the case. Since Aiden had a weapon, it is considered aggravated assault. For this serious crime, the investigator took the hero to a holding cell. The hero is registered in Gangneung, but lives in Seoul, which means that he does not have a permanent place of residence. Lim hopes Aiden understands the reason why he was put behind bars. The investigator left, and suddenly the man in the monkey house asked the hero how he got there. Aiden turned around and saw a guy with glasses lying calmly on the floor. A man might assume that this bastard got involved personally. Principal White, this asshole is in cahoots with the police. It's no surprise that this is the squad on duty today. The man said they've already made a deal to cover for the director. He told Aiden to tell him and help him get out. The hero asked if the man knew Director White. Yes, they were a family once, but Sean turned out to be a bastard. The man contacted a lawyer. He will be here soon. If our hero behaves well, they will help him get out. The guy asked again how Aiden got here. Lim called Sean in a panic, asking what he was doing. Aiden had been sent to the detention center, but they couldn't keep him there for long. There is a limit to everything. The investigator knows nothing. He just says not to cause problems. He made it clear that he can no longer cover for Director White. During this time, Aiden told his neighbor in the isolation cell everything in detail. The man thought that our hero was telling the truth. He said that Aiden seemed to have run into the wrong opponent. A normal person wouldn't be able to do that. Director White has a lot of connections. The hero asked what to do if this is not a simple person. The guy replied that the only way was to break the law. Sometimes there was no way out. Aiden asked for more details. The man completely forgot to introduce himself. He is Chris Hope, the owner of a small karaoke bar in the Sinsadong area, and a little bit of a bandit, so he's a bandit. Chris laughed at how easily Aiden said it. The man was a member of a gang, and here he is on false charges. White's henchmen interfered with Chris's business. They often snitch, framing it as an illegal business or even planting drugs. Then Chris is caught, he proves his innocence, he is released, and everything repeats itself. The man has already gotten used to it. It turns out that Director White is also a criminal, and he and Chris are not on the best terms now. The man said that Sean is not the main problem. There is a guy who is commonly referred to as the representative of Yun. He took down the boss they used to serve and took over all power. Then Chris and Sean parted ways because the man could not stay with the traitors. So this Yun representative killed a man but was not punished. Chris replied that he was a big shot, and then the man suggested that Aiden switch to informal terms since they were already almost friends. Chris is older than the hero, so it's okay, and he's stubborn. Aiden said that everyone is keeping quiet about his sister's death. The man thinks that the Yun representative is involved. It's not the first time he gets rid of unwanted people. The hero asked where he could meet. Chris was surprised at first, and then he laughed. He apologized, but said that it was impossible. Only people of a certain level can meet with Representative Yun. Aiden will have only one option left, to go ahead. Chris advises to be prepared to go to jail if someone gets hurt. To be honest, he wouldn't recommend the hero get involved in this. Aiden has his own life. We need to accept the fact of suicide and move on. At that moment, Investigator Lim entered the cell and told Chris to go out. It seems the lawyer has arrived. The man asked to wait. He will also rescue Aiden. So they both came out only in the early morning. The hero thanked him, but Chris replied that there was no reason to. Aiden was forcibly locked there. If the man's guess is correct, they won't be able to continue the case now that Yun is involved. By the way, he took out his business card and handed it to the hero. If Aiden wants a drink, he can drop by. Chris laughed. He only took the card holder. The man asked if the hero had any money since he hadn't eaten anything since yesterday. Aiden handed him his wallet, but Chris only took 10,000 and said goodbye. A man stood in his office with a bottle of cognac and looked out the window. Suddenly he told Sean that if you look down on them, people are just like ants. White laughed nervously. The man sat down, putting his feet on the table, and added that the ants could be trampled at any moment. Sean asked in a panic what to do then. Aiden watched his new comrade leave and then carefully studied his business card, Chris Gold. Sean said that Detective Lim can't cover for them anymore. He asked them to lie low so there's no other way out. While we're at it, Yun asks if Sean shouldn't have done the job properly in the first place. In Korea, such injuries would not be considered self-defense. Sean then asked if they should formally sue. Director Bruce Yun said that they could then be exposed in the process. Suddenly he said that Sean was 5 years younger than him. Does Yun always have to spoon-feed him? Bruce asked him to talk to Cole Lim and sort this out as soon as possible. Investigator Lim will do anything if Sean gives him 2,000,000 won. So this idiot is in Gangnam and his mother is alone in the hospital, so there is no one at home. Yun took out a cigar and said that any of the neighbors' children could climb in there to smoke, and the house could catch fire. Bruce told Sean to take a picture of his mother with a knife to her throat and send it to that jerk. He asked if this creature had any debts. Sean said no, it was just a hangout bar. Chloe never even asked for an advance payment. Yun said to call Dolgoff and tell Mom to pay. Who cares if Chloe is dead? Sean was shocked but agreed. And Yun also said that losers are useless. Director White stood motionless in panic and confusion. Bruce called someone and asked how it went. They told him that they were currently draining the blood. All 4 were still alive. Yun was asked whether they should be killed. Bruce replied that he didn't need them so they could kill. Bruce hung up and looked at the intimidated Sean. White said he would go to Gangnam and deal with the matter personally. After that, he ran away in panic. Sean told the driver to go faster, although that was the maximum. Principal White yelled at the guy and he started flying. The hero's mother lay in the ward looking at a photo with her daughter. The nurse brought lunch, but the woman just turned away. The nurse said she would starve to death. How many days has it been? She asks when the patient's son will arrive. He hasn't said a word since leaving for Seoul. Suddenly there was a knock on the door and Sean entered the room. He told his mother that he knew her daughter, Chloe. He heard that he was in this hospital. The nurse said the woman was too shocked to speak. Sean was sorry to hear that and handed over the fruit. But he had something he needed to discuss and asked the employee to leave it. The nurse repeated once again that the woman was unable to speak, but the man insisted that he would simply pass on something. The mother gave the go-ahead and the nurse left, closing the door. Sean gets straight to the point. He told the woman that her daughter owed him money on a contract. The man showed a piece of paper that said Chloe had borrowed 200,000,000 won from him. But if she died, there is nothing to take from her. The mother began to shake with shock. Sean snorted that this fool was not even able to utter words. He said it was a contract with the saloon and asked if the woman knew what it was. Sean revealed that Chloe sold her body for money, and she left at his expense. Mother began to cry. Sean leaned over and said she had to give the money back. The woman began to moan and then replied that Chloe was not that kind of girl. She said even louder that her daughter was not like that. Sean grabbed his mother by the hair and said that's exactly what she was. A cheap prostitute who slept with everyone for money, just like her. The woman bursts into tears and the man whispers in her ear that her daughter is a slut. Suddenly, the woman's eyelids began to close. Sean let her go and she fell exhausted onto the bed. That was the end of the mother. Aiden realizes that he can't compete with the mafia on his own. Maybe he should just give up on all of this? No, what about Chloe? Suddenly, the hero's phone rang. This is from Gangneung City Hospital. Aiden pursed his lip when he heard the sad news. Sean reported that the boy's mother had suddenly died. Director Yu asked if he had killed her. White said he just wanted to scare her. She started shaking and then suddenly died. Then Bruce said to demand the debt from the older brother. Sean was surprised. Aiden knows something, he told him. Bruce didn't understand what the problem was. Sean quickly corrected himself and replied that he would sort it out, including the apartment. Director White fell into his seat asking what to do now. The driver noticed that Director Myers lived in the area and suggested calling him. Sean's expression changed, but Director Steve Myers can help. Aiden was alone at his mother's funeral when a visitor arrived. The hero saw a sad woman and they began to pray together. Aiden asked how she knew his mother. The woman said she had taken care of her in the hospital. The hero suggested a memorial service and they sat down at the table. He thanked the nurse for coming. Aiden asked the administration for her contact information and they agreed. So this is the first time he sees a woman. Suddenly she told him that some people had come to see his mother that day. One of them asked her to leave the room to talk to her mother alone. And then, when the nurse came out, she became frightened by another man standing guard. He demanded that the woman go as far away as possible. The man who came into Aiden's mother's room, he looked like a decent man in a suit. But outside stood a big guy with a frankly criminal face. While the nurse was leaving, screams began to be heard from the ward. But Ambal made it clear by his appearance that it was not worth approaching. The nurse returned 10 minutes later, and the mother was already dead. She had no appetite for about a week and she ate poorly. The woman was very weak, and when the nurse arrived, those men were no longer in the room. Before Aiden could respond, shouts began to erupt in the hallway. Men were chasing people away from the wake of the prostitute's mother. The hero came out and asked who let them in. One of the gang laughed. The gang leader Steve approached. It became clear that this guy was the son of the deceased. But Aiden's face was unwavering, which confused the men. Usually people get angry when you say bad words about their mothers. The guy asked if he was a robot or what. A gang of thugs continued to disperse people from the funeral. Steve asked if the guy's younger sister was Chloe. She stole money from a soul club and he bought the debt. 200 million plus interest. 300 million. The Gopnik said that they would take all the donations in the box. Aiden just calmly said that she couldn't do that. Steve started slapping him across the face. She said that her sister probably didn't tell her family because she was ashamed. Steve grabbed Aiden by the tie and asked if he was going to pay off the debt. The hero said to take the house. Myers knows about all the property of this family, but this house is burning now and it cannot be saved. Steve doesn't understand what's wrong with this idiot. Aiden has a robotic face. One of the thugs said that some people lose their sensitivity from shock. The hero said that he had money in the safe. He asked Steve for the address, saying that he would bring them to him. The man was surprised. Really, 300 million? Aiden said he would bring it after the funeral. Steve grabbed him by the neck and asked if the greenhouse really didn't understand what was happening right now, or should he open the coffin. Aiden said he'd have everything delivered by midnight tonight. Steve let the hero go and threw his business card. Wholesale clothing and alcoholic beverages, Steve Myers. In the evening at 10 to 12, Aiden went to the place. He stopped in front of the entrance, threw his bag on the ground, and took out a bamboo sword. Steve is tired of waiting. It's already 11:59. He asks if the funeral home there is closed yet. The guy replied that yes, the lights were out in the windows and the restaurant was closed. Well, Steve said that if Aiden doesn't show up, it's simple. That means they have a reason to shut him down. But not all the employees understood why they needed to be there in full force. Steve reminded the moron why they were there. It's understandable, though. Aiden should be scared when he sees them. It's called intimidation. The hero was already going up to the office when suddenly he received a call. It was the teacher. He's in Japan now, invited to be a judge at a kendo championship. Hopefully the funeral hasn't happened yet. The teacher was looking for tickets, but the next flight was only tomorrow morning. He apologizes very much that he couldn't, but he will definitely be there tomorrow. Aiden said not to worry. Everything is fine, but he is busy now, so he will call back later. Tomorrow he and the teacher may not see each other and never again. The hero is infinitely grateful for everything he did for him. It was already 12:03. Steve decided that the guy wouldn't come. It was already midnight. Perhaps it escaped from the funeral home. Myers did not foresee this. The subordinate apologized. He had to keep an eye on the guy. Steve yelled that these idiots were making fun of him. The man dialed Director Yu's number and said that this guy had run away and hadn't come to bring the money. Bruce is annoyed. He asked to sort this out. But Steve says he couldn't do it in the funeral home with witnesses. There are a huge number of cameras there. Director Yu is shocked. How could anyone believe that Aiden would bring money? Well, this is Steve's area. It's free from video surveillance. He's already taken care of that. Besides, it would be better to get some money. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Steve would call Bruce back later. The guy opened the door and Aiden entered the room with a bamboo stick. Steve already thought that he had escaped and asked where the money was. The hero replied that there was no money. Myers thought the guy was hiding something. Aiden asked sharply who Steve worked for. The man got up from the table. This sucker was asking for trouble. Steve told the dogs to break everything they could on him. Dozens of men with clubs surrounded Aiden. Does he really think that jokes can be made here, or does he take them for liars? Aiden just kept quiet, and Steve said that now he was definitely screwed. The door is closed, the hero has nowhere to run. He is now like a rat in a mousetrap. Aiden gripped the bamboo tightly and remembered the day he won the championship. There are many fencers, but there are none like him. Our hero has certainly achieved the highest level of skill. One of the dogs pounced on him, and the hero quickly drank the club from his hands. And then he slapped me in the face. While Aiden was dealing with those in front of him, he was being attacked from behind. But he quickly killed everyone who attempted to kill him with a single turn. So within seconds, dozens of guys were lying on the floor, exhausted. Steve shouted in alarm to the others to kill this bastard. The robbers began to fall out of the windows of the building and crashed to death. Aiden finished everyone off and approached Steve. The director plaintively asked not to touch him. The hero asked again who he worked for. Steve screamed that he had been set up. He was told that they would give him $2 billion in bonds for $5,000. The man thought they were real. He swears he knows nothing more. Steve said that this scammer runs a couple of bars in Seoul. That's all he knows. Aiden immediately thought of Sean. We need to find out how he was involved. The hero got the answer, so he decided to leave. Steve thought it was a joke. As Aiden approached the door, the man attacked him from behind with a knife. The hero quickly knocked it out of Steve's hands and hit him on the head. Aiden's teacher came to say goodbye to the hero's mother. Aiden wrote that he was very sorry. All the money had been transferred. There aren't many of them, but the teacher might use them for a funeral. He'll come visit sometime. What kind of guy is he? Aiden was wandering around the street at night and got Chris's business card. He went to the bar at the address given. The hero entered and the owner immediately recognized him. Chris promised to buy him a drink. The man was glad to meet him. He told Aiden to sit down and he would bring him the best girl. Later, Chris brought drinks and asked why the guy came so early. The girls won't be here until 8. Aiden said to forget about them. He has a favor to ask. The hero wants to work here. Chris was surprised and then said that they had no vacancies. Aiden replied that he just needed a place to sleep and food. He didn't need a salary. Chris asked him what was the hurry. The man realized that this guy seemed to have problems. However, he can't really help. Chris then suggested something, namely to go ahead and be prepared to go to jail if someone gets hurt. Chris can't believe it. He told the guy to just move on with his life. And then it all turned out like this. Since the man also considers Director Yun a traitor, Aiden is on his side. They have different motives, but the goal is the same. Chris laughed, saying what a funny hero, and suggested they get a drink instead. Aiden is talking nonsense, and then the hero raised his voice. The man said that he was crazy. There is no need for ordinary people to walk around here. If anyone hears Aiden, it's the end. Chris will pretend he didn't hear anything. The owner left and Aiden grabbed the bottle of whiskey and began to drink greedily. He remembers bits and pieces of Chris and some girl trying to bring him to his senses. But the crazy idiot emptied an entire bottle of whiskey. The hero, as if in a dream, saw Chloe in front of him. The girl asked how he knew her name. Aiden reached out to her, telling her that she was alive after all. The girl looked at Chris in confusion and then took the hero's hand and placed it on her face. The hero recovered only towards morning. Chris was already sitting next to him, dissatisfied. Aiden felt sorry. Well, the man didn't think that the hero could be brought down so easily. He seemed unperturbed. It was time for Chris to go, and he got up from his chair when suddenly Aiden told him that his mother had died. Chris offered his condolences, but then the hero added that she was killed. They simply made fun of a sick woman and she couldn't take it anymore. Okay, Aiden put on his cap and apologized for causing trouble. He headed for the door when Chris stopped him. Aiden was a rascal, but the man still asked if there was anywhere he could go. Not anymore. Chris doesn't know why he suddenly became so kind, but he allowed the hero to work here. If you have nowhere to go, you can sleep here. Bar workers usually hide here during raids. They shouldn't be there now, but that's how it used to be. Aiden was staring at two pool cues. Chris told him not to stare and to listen to him. He said that if the hero pesters Director Yun with his stupid phrases, he might even die. Aiden is just a worker, so let him work. You only need to listen to Chris and not take other people's orders. The hero said he understood everything. And then the man asked how the guy knew Chloe's name. Aiden looked surprised. So the hero met a bar worker whose name is also Chloe. Today Aiden starts work. Looking at the girl, he said that he seemed to have made a mistake yesterday and asked for forgiveness. Chloe replied that everything was fine. He must have confused her with someone else. She assumed that he confused her with an ex. Aiden apologized he would be more careful with his words. And then the girl looked at him in shock. The hero speaks like an old man. It gives you goosebumps. Chloe asked if he was really from the 21st century. Coming closer, she said that he was not at all fashionable. Chloe added that all weaklings would be eaten by predators. Aiden thanked her for her concern. What kind of phrases are these? So, in the evening, Chris told the staff that they had a new employee and asked everyone to introduce themselves. The first is Waiter Louie, 21 years old. Next up is Waiter Phil, also 21 years old. Manager Ryan, 29 years old. Worker Chloe, real name Kate Brooke. Melody, 23 years old. Irene, 30 years old. Sophie, 22 years old. This girl said that finally there was a pretty manager. Chris whispered in Aiden's ear to come up with a name for himself quickly. The hero hesitated and the man introduced him as Aiden Kai's manager. He hoped they would get along. If anything, Chris said to ask Chloe, and so everyone got to work. Irene said the new manager was a cutie, but Chloe added that he was being really cautious. He'll probably cry when he faces the harsh reality. That's adult life. A month of work had passed. On this day, Lewis said anxiously that it was time to close. Chloe says that every month there are false reports. At such times, the boss is sent to jail. Yes, Chris said that Director White's minions were interfering in his business. They often snitch, framing it as an illegal business or even planting drugs. Aiden asked if they could just continue working. Chloe replied that without a boss, things would be a mess. Strange people come all the time. They demand money and threaten. Aiden is new here, so he doesn't know everything yet. Ryan suggested they prepare for closing. The girls started to lead all the customers out of the bar. Naturally, they were outraged that the bar closed at 10 p.m. All the workers have gone home until tomorrow. The sign light has gone out. Aiden waited for a moment, turned on the sign, took the cue he liked, and began to wait for the guests. Director White was informed that the door to the Again bar had been left open and the lights had not been turned off. However, Chris is still in pretrial detention. Sean was very surprised and called Bruce from a special phone with an urgent message. The lights are left on and again, but Chris has been in the isolation cell for a long time. Bruce asked if Sean seriously thought that this number could be used to call for any bullshit. White apologized and asked if he should go there. Bruce yelled at him to wake up. He had left the business in his hands, and Sean should be able to handle such situations on his own. The girl next to Bruce asked why he was swearing, but after his look, she quickly pulled away. Sean said that the location of that guy from Kaneem is still unknown. Bad dude, Bruce would have killed him with his own hands. Director Yun asked what was going on with Again, whether they were still coping without Chris. The only subordinate of Michael Hart who had any value was Chris. However, how can Again work now that he is in the detention center? So Sean asked what to do. Bruce smashed the bottle and told him to shut up. He thought it was clear. Thinks? Well, despite his explosive character, Bruce Yuen is not a fool. If I were a fool, I wouldn't have been able to outwit Cole Hope. He must have figured something out. Bruce told Sean to send Bill Fox. Director White was surprised. To shoot sparrows with a cannon? Had Director Yun already suspected something? After a while, several cars pulled up to the Again bar. Serious men in suits began to emerge from them. They blocked the road, drove the people away, and gathered together holding clubs in their hands. And then the gang boss, Bill, came out. This is, of course, unbelievable. They lived and did business. What flybit again? Bill suggested that they might have simply forgotten to turn off the lights after work. He told them to send 2 men to check if the club was open. The 2 men walked in and saw Aiden sitting at the reception desk. However, they had not seen him at the bar before and asked if the club was open or closed. The hero replied that yes, but today only food and drinks. The men grinned and left. They told the boss that the guy inside said the club was open, but they had never seen this employee before. Bill replied that then everything was clear. He didn't understand what was going on. They would come in and teach him a lesson. A crowd of men began to enter the bar. Aiden turned off the light and took 2 sticks. He doesn't know since when and how this attitude towards the owner of the establishment appeared. Constant denunciations, living in fear and walking as if through a minefield so as not to run into any danger. Once such an attitude has been established, it is not easy to change. And one day the thought arises that nothing can be changed. But today, Aiden would change that attitude forever. Bill and his dogs came in and told him to close the front door. The man was surprised that this young bar worker was going to fight with them. Bill didn't intend to kill anyone, but now he definitely will. He told our hero that he was like a rat in a trap now, didn't he understand? Aiden replied that they were rats that had fallen into a trap. 4 years ago, our hero from the university sports section entered the arena to conduct a demonstration. It's hard to disagree that in the country, kendo is perceived more as a hobby, but Aiden is not an ordinary swordsman. Indeed, such gifted people are born once every few centuries. Japan also has a very talented kendo master. It would be interesting to compare his abilities with Aiden. This master's name is Yuta Shinsuke. He won the Japanese national championship for 5 years. This fencing genius started his path to victory in high school. At that demonstration, Aiden showed that he had honed to perfection not only at a ryu, but also Nito Ryu. And Yuta Shinsuke does not know Nito Ryu. It is the art of fencing with 2 swords of different sizes. It is said to be suitable for combat with multiple opponents, which is more relevant than ever now. With his shodo, Aiden seems to cut his way through the crowd of attackers. Indeed, Nito Ryu provides greater mobility when fighting against multiple opponents. The shodo is followed by a daito, and the hero does not allow the enemy to get to him from behind. And sometimes synchronized strikes follow. One breakthrough from behind. Aiden hits the shodo on the opponent's wrist. This is a defensive move. In Nito Ryu, defense is paramount. Chudansei, the hero strikes an opponent who has come up from behind, and then he makes a sweep with a sword. Aiden changes position. It's incredible how agile he is. The spectators are simply amazed. Is such speed really possible in kendo? Aiden knocked everyone out. I wish I could see another demonstration like that, but it's not all over yet. The most powerful enemy has just entered the battle. Bill pounced on the hero and demanded to know where he came from, but Aiden quickly stopped him. The hero takes a daito strike and counters, and then suddenly Seto attacks. No, it was a feint. Aiden distracted the enemy's attention. The hero hit Bill first in the stomach and then in the head. That demonstration 4 years ago also ended successfully. The audience simply exploded with loud applause. Aiden wiped away the sweat and began to walk around the dozens of bodies lying on the floor. Director Yun finds it hard to believe that Bill was defeated. Even 20 people couldn't defeat one guy. Yes, it seems Chris has his men, Bruce began to think. The kids who were sitting quietly suddenly decided to rebel. Are they really that confident in themselves? They may have a lot more cards up their sleeve. Sean asked if he should deal with them. Bruce thinks they are waiting for them to come. It's a trap. They know Director Yun and the wards will come for revenge. First, we need to assess the situation. Bruce told Sean to pass on his words. The next morning, while Aiden was cleaning up, he told Chris everything. The previous night, a group of guys attacked him and he defended himself. The director asked why the hero didn't close the door. Hadn't he been warned? But Chris himself said not to listen to anyone else and just do your job. And then the director remembered his words about Aiden being just a worker, so let him work and listen only to him. The furniture was almost undamaged, and the hero had cleaned up everything else. Chris replied that it wasn't important now. He fell onto the sofa and his blood pressure jumped. The hero showed a broken pink phone and said he would make up for everything. It turned out to be Chloe's phone. Chris said that a war was about to start because of Aiden. He asked the hero to sit down next to him and talk. The director opened a bank account and deposited the money Aiden had earned into it. The PIN code was 6,795, so Chris gave the card and told the guy to withdraw the money himself. And he also handed over a phone. The director registered it in his name and linked it to the account. The fee will be debited automatically. That's all Chris can do for Aiden. He tells the boy to go. The hero didn't understand what was happening. Chris had already received a call from the director's henchmen. They said that if he gave Aiden, they would forget everything, but the man cannot betray our hero. But even if he does, they will have a reason to pester Chris, so they will have to say goodbye. The man can say that Aiden escaped while he was trying to hand him over to them. This is the only way out now. Suddenly, Aiden said there was another one, saying that Chris and the others won't let this go if they're touched again. They'll dictate the terms now. Chris sighed loudly and fell backwards onto the back of the couch. Aiden asked what was wrong. The man didn't understand why the guy was doing this. You need to think rationally. Aiden is acting like a school kid trying to pick a fight with a student. No, it's even more reminiscent of a baby trying to intimidate a professional fighter. Well, let's see. Aiden said that he held a senior position in a certain field for several years. Chris replied that if he was talking about kendo, then it's not even a professional sport, but rather in Korea, it's just entertainment. But Aiden was talking about the whole world. He reached the top. The hero said that some opponents are not worth running from. They need to be fought back. Aiden is confident he can do it alone. Well, since he's so cocky, Chris will explain what's what and told him to listen carefully. Not long ago, Seoul was divided between the Donhae and Changwon factions. However, suddenly the leader of Chang Yi's group, Ethan Crisp, nominated his successor. During the process of reunification of Seoul, Liam Keynes, who actively supported it, was killed by Donghae's group. Liam's daughter, Kylie, inherited his shares. Although she had been an obstacle to the unification of Seoul, Donghae's group did not hold a funeral. The group divided the captured territory, and Kylie received the golden lands of Gangnam in recognition of her father's merits. She was even promised to do it herself, but Kylie said that she was not a bandit and tried to hand over all the affairs to Cole Hope. Cole was Liam's mate. He only cared about Kylie's well-being. That is why he did not interfere as long as the subsidiaries paid their rent on time. Then a problem arose in one of the sub-organizations. Chris worked in this company. Bruce Yuen was also involved. One day he gathered together boss Steve Michelson, Michael's deputy, Chris Sean, and Bruce said that it seemed like Cole only cared about money. We should take over the lower factions. Steve asked what then? Give up Cole and make way for Do-hyun? Bruce said Do-han would occupy Seoul so they would expand their influence. Yun thought that all they had to do was continue paying Cole. They had to attack Do-hyun and take over all of Seoul. However, the boss told him to be realistic about this. It is not that easy. Steve wanted Bruce to focus more on the business. Yun asked if everyone was okay with that. Michael, the deputy head of the trading company, said that if the boss said so, they should listen. The rest also had nothing to add. At that time, Sean White was in a higher position than Bruce. Yun was unhappy, and this angered the boss. Michael replied that this was Director Yun. If he was pacified, he would quickly apologize like a guilty child. But that night, Bruce snuck into Steve's house and killed all of his guards. In the end, he only said that he had ambitions. And after that, he hit his boss with a blow to the head. Steve began to insult Bruce, and he dealt a fatal blow to the face. Thus, Yun quickly overthrew his boss. Unsuspectingly, Fred declined the offer to join forces, and he ran to the director, one of the 17 lower organizations of Cole Hope. Chris followed Michael. So there was someone above the president of the company. Bruce rallied the remaining people and quickly expanded his influence. Of Cole's 17 factions, 13 are already in the hands of Director Yun. Aiden asked when Director White joined. Chris replied that the day after the boss died, he went to Bruce, whom he had previously looked down on. The hero asked which 3 groups Director Yun had not yet led. And he's curious about this because he needs to join forces with Chris first. Chris said not to talk nonsense. What kind of jokes are these? The man started asking when Aiden would leave when Chloe arrived. She burst into tears when she saw her broken phone. Aiden apologized and said he would pay for the repairs. The girl came up to him and with tears in her eyes said that she bought it only 3 years ago. Chloe expected some kind of reaction from Aiden, but he simply turned away and said he was sorry. Then the girl demanded that they write a receipt. She needed evidence, and they went into the next office. Bruce was informed that Aiden had not been caught and that Chris was expecting a personal apology. What? Director Yun doesn't understand anything. He told his subordinates to go ahead. Aiden actually sat down and wrote a promise to compensate Kate Brooke, whose bar name is Chloe, for breaking her phone. The hero calmly gave her the paper. Suddenly, the girl pointed to the side. And then she touched his face and laughed. Chloe tore up the paper and said everything was fine. Aiden insisted on compensation, but Kate just wanted to see his reaction. She asked where he was going. However, Aiden had not yet decided. Chloe asked if he would be back soon. Suddenly, Chris burst into the office. He said that people from Satkanam would arrive in an hour. This is one of Director Yoon's 14 factions. They provide the labor force. And what is Chris even explaining? If you're curious, Aiden can Google it. The man told him to hurry up. Chris told Chloe to come too. He'll tell her later. Aiden is fully prepared for the people to arrive. Chris got a call from his boss, Michael Hart. The man was telling him about Bill's problems. Chris apologizes for the trouble and says he'll sort it out soon. Bill supposedly had the problem sorted out, but that was just talk. Chris couldn't be sure. He asked his brother what he thought. Michael realizes that one man cannot stand against a crowd of armed gangsters. Chris objects because Director Yun has serious forces at his disposal, as many as 14 business groups. and each has several subsidiaries. Bruce is a monster and has gathered people like him around him. Chris tells his brother that they should lay low now and keep a low profile so as not to get hit by him. However, Michael asked to be told better when he should expect payment of the debt for killing the boss and betrayal. Chris replied that not right now, but definitely. Michael was thinking about it. He wanted to get to know Aiden better, so he asked to bring him to him. Chris was surprised and asked why. He sent him away because he was afraid of a big mess. If Bruce had wanted to get to him, they themselves would have been reduced to horns and legs. Chris will try to mislead Director Yoon and find out what he wants. Time has already passed, and Aiden still hasn't returned from Gangnam. 20 minutes ago, I came to Satkanam's headquarters. But a hero can't destroy everything in his path every time. He walked inside and saw dozens of professional fighters. Aiden immediately noticed a bag of golf clubs to the side. The hero told the leader that he was looking for a job. The man asked him to come later. They were having a meeting now. And then Aiden said that he had just gotten out of the Again Club. He was a simple security guard, but people came and started a fight. Aiden says they wanted to transfer him somewhere else, but he didn't want to, and so he ran away. The man realized that this guy had met Bill and ran to the phone. He told Jake to get up. The other man wanted them to arrive later than Ben at all costs. However, a man from Satkanam said that a guy came here and claimed that he met Bill, and he came safe and sound on his own 2 feet. This one is hard to believe, of course, but we have to check. Okay, the one the guy called agreed to come. Jake, who was sitting downstairs in the office, continued playing on his phone when he suddenly heard a loud crash and noise from above. He quickly got up to find out what was going on. Jake was shocked to see all of Satkanam's top fighters bloodied and unconscious. He tried to run away, but the stick hit him in the back. Aiden told the bald leader to drag this Jake here. Meanwhile, Chris continued to wait for our hero in his office, but he was still nowhere to be seen. He had heard of such a case in Gangnam, but what was this? There were dozens of big guys standing at the entrance to the bar. Chris straightened his hair and looked serious. In front of him stood that same Ben. The man regrets that they met under such circumstances. They were once a family. Chris wonders what circumstances Ben is referring to. He probably knows that only Noah, the director of Satkanam, wanted to come. But as Chris can see, there were many more people willing to do so. But Chris replied that he wasn't expecting them. Ben asked if he was really that naive. He knew who the mafiosi were. They can kill Chris now, and then his older brother Michael Hart, and he won't be able to do anything. This way, boss Bruce Yuen will be able to expand his influence. It's very simple, though. Yes, Ben said that Chris would die today. Meanwhile, Aiden wiped the blood from his face and questioned Jake. The hero was right. At first, the man thought that Chris had hired people to protect himself and wanted to see what would happen next. But Chris asked for mercy and a delay, and Jake sent people to him again. About 50 people were already heading to finish him off. And Jake was just bait. Aiden asked why he didn't run. Jake said that they were from the same family. Despite the fact that Chris was higher in rank than him, he treated him with respect. The man felt ashamed of his leg, so he decided to stay. Chris ran back into the bar and began barricading the doors. However, the freaks from Satkanam knocked her out without much difficulty. Chris threw down his glasses and stood at attention. Ben asked him mockingly if he was sure he could survive this fight. I had never seen him like this. Chris said he still had things to do in this world. Ben told the idiot not to get any illusions. At his command, dozens of guys attacked the man with clubs. Aiden ran headlong into the rain to the Again bar. The bald man asked Jake if maybe they should go there too. But where? Does he really want to become an enemy of Director Yun and die painfully? But what a horror, Jake had no choice. The man was crying. He was just a small-time thug and he needed the money. He didn't want to betray Chris. Jake dialed Michael Hart's number with shaking hands. Chris fought back against the bandits and punched them quite professionally. However, since he was surrounded on all sides, he was unable to see Ben throw the club at him. Chris fell and a crowd of men began to beat him. Ben pinned his head to the ground and called him a worthless piece of shit. The man grabbed a club and was ready to finish off Chris. But suddenly some phone flew into his head. Looking at it, Chris immediately remembered that this was the phone he had given to Aiden. Yes, our hero, without wasting a minute, began to deal with the bandits who attacked the director. Aiden promises to make them obey. This guy is in a completely different league. Ben tried to hide at the end of the hallway. Michael and his men immediately arrived at the scene. When he entered, he saw a lot of blood and lifeless bodies. Bruce was surprised when Michael called him. He already thought that he was going over to his side. Manager Yoon's boys are everywhere again. Michael asked what to do about it. Well, he'll let them live. Michael said that their property had been damaged and that compensation would need to be paid. Bruce laughed, saying that the idiot must have eaten something bad. Michael, in a more menacing voice, responded to Manager Yoon that it was none of his concern at all. When Bruce betrayed his boss, Michael ran for cover within the organization. He was only trusted with one branch. Bruce hasn't captured this group yet, and they aren't afraid of him. Michael asked if Yoon wanted war. He seemed to tell Bruce to his face to prepare to pay damages and hung up. The subordinates asked Michael what they should do. Ben was injured. Did he need help? But then Michael turned around and said, "Leave him alone. No need to be petty. Ben is no threat to them. If they get rid of Ben, Bruce will think they have nothing left in store." Meanwhile, Director Yoon is just furious. He was smashing everything around him. We need to think about this carefully. Chris Gold was taken into custody, but the bar remained open. Bruce sent Bill, but he was defeated. Yoon thought they had something ready to strike him. Chris was too easygoing, so Bruce kicked him out. But his guys got their asses kicked, and then Michael showed up. Did he really think this all through? Or there is a traitor among Bruce's comrades? Michael was drinking at the bar with Aiden. The hero is new here, and it seems he was kicked out. Aiden replied that he had nowhere to go, so he came back. Michael wonders if he dealt with those guys himself. The hero replied that half of them escaped. Impressive. The man heard that Bruce was involved in the murder of Aiden's family. Michael came closer and said that he was interested in our hero and that he himself would say. He extended his hand and offered to catch Bruce together. Aiden shook his hand back without further ado. Director Yoon sat in his office with a bat, waiting for Director Jake. When he arrived, Bruce told him to sit closer, because he was the only one who had arrived. Director Yoon put the bat on the floor. He will ask right away. Of the 4 groups he sent, Satkanam was the only one that held out till the end without giving up. Jake replied that some guy just burst in and stirred everything up. They got it all sorted out and moved out late. But Jake said Michael's gang was already there. The part that went earlier was already crippled. They decided that there was no chance of victory and retreated. Bruce looked at Jake suspiciously at first, and then he folded his hands on the bat and asked how old he was. Jake is 45, 10 years older than Principal White. Bruce stood up abruptly, picked up the bat, and approached the man. He held the bat to his face and asked if Jake had kissed Michael up. Bruce asks if the man will follow his orders or if he wants to die. Jake, in fear, promises to follow all orders. Meanwhile, Michael and Aiden came to a strange place. It is not the usual hospital. They come to these places because doctors and regular hospitals report them. The guys came to Chris. When the doctor left, the guy quickly stood up and asked what was wrong. Manager Jake told Michael everything. Even though he is on Bruce's side, he still has warm feelings for the guys. They had once been a family, and Jake thought about going on strike and joining them after Ben finished work. Chris asked if he couldn't just switch sides. But that's the plan. It's dangerous to stay there. Jake literally flew out of Bruce's office and stopped in a panic at the pole. Director Yoon came up with a plan. Michael will trust Jake, so the man will set up a meeting and say that he wants to commit treason. The place is Namyangju. When Jake tried to object, Bruce slammed the bat on the table with all his might. He's using the man to get rid of Michael. That's probably clearer. Bruce told Jake to contact Michael and tell him that Director Yoon suspects him of treason. And if a man starts acting up, he knows what will happen. And after that, Bruce hit him in the face. Jake was shaking with fear, so he had to do this for his life. Michael was surprised that the man called right at the time when they were talking about him. Jake told the director that he wanted to commit treason. Michael smiled. He was just about to contact the man. And he, without suspecting anything, Jake is in his circles. Michael also participates in spreading the reputation. That's why he tells her to complain not to him, but to Pak, the head of the Reputation Dissemination Department. Jake understood and then said goodbye. A little later, he would find out the exact location and contact me. Michael replied that he was waiting for a call and hung up. Meanwhile, Bruce called his boss, Pak. He was just waiting for the call. Director Yoon said that it seems like their guys made a mistake regarding again. They want to improve and restore relations. Chief Pak laughed. Well, he lived to see it. Representative Yoon tells him this. Life never ceases to amaze. Bruce said they were thinking about compensation of around 100 million and asked how the boss could handle that. Pak asked if that was all. Then the BN representative asked how much he wanted. Pak, as he was entering the office, answered, 300 million, all in cash. Bruce asked in surprise. And Chief Pak thinks it makes sense. Or would 500 million in bonds be better? Or as collateral? No, Bruce said they were preparing 300 million in cash. He needs to launder the money, so he will deliver it personally. Director Yoon asked where he should go and asked him to assign a place. Chief Park will notify the location on the same day. He asked by what date Yoon could prepare everything. Bruce said to give him 3 days. Okay, so the boss scheduled a meeting 3 days later at 7 o'clock in the evening. Only Director Yoon asked to send him a place immediately and hung up. Bruce called Jake and said that the meeting was scheduled for 3 days later at 7 o'clock in the evening. At that time, Director Yoon himself had to be elsewhere on an important matter. That was the only way to reach an agreement. Bruce leaned against the window of the luxurious office and smirked. Meanwhile, furniture was being removed from the again bar. Chloe was confused and asked what happened and where the director was. Aiden said that Chris was injured, so he handed over control to him for the time being. So our hero won't be able to work for 3 days. Chloe demanded compensation for the damage. And then she laughed and asked if it was nice. She told me to pay for the damage again. Aiden has no money, but who asks for money? Chloe suggested going on a date. She's so bored today. The hero was very confused. The girl started bombarding him with questions like whether he was moving into the store or not. Michael came to Chief Pack with a complaint. They used to be one family. It seems Bruce has some business in 3 days' time and he can only leave at that time. The meeting place is far away, all the way to Namyangju. Chief Park replied that he had a deal with Director Yoon that same day. Michael is shocked. Does the boss really trust him? But the old man replied that Bruce will come personally. Director Yoon is a snake, so Michael will spur his fighters on. Chief Pack thought he would bring Jake. If so, there would be enough fighters. But instead, Michael has Lancey and Carter. Of course, he'll take one more person with him just in case. He turned out to be a very good friend. Chief Pack became curious about who it was. Michael said that this is a man who wants to rip off Director Yoon's head and lost his entire family. Chief Pack suggested that this guy was probably living in some cave now. Michael doesn't know, but he thinks life is unbearable for him. In eternal torment, all he can do is wait for Bruce Ewan's death. Yeah, nothing beats trying. Meanwhile, Kate brought Aiden to the Pink Cafe. Under pressure, he had to hide his shame and say how deliciously he ate. Chief Pack is wondering what if something goes wrong and Aiden gets killed. He's Michael's man, but the hero has nothing to lose. He knows no happiness, so if he is sacrificed, then everything can be blamed on fate. Kate and Aiden were walking around the city after the cafe. The hero spoke on the phone. In 3 days, they will send him a list of names. Suddenly, Kate came up close to Aiden and asked if they would go for a walk tomorrow too. He said that it would take 3 days, so let them entertain her for these 3 days. Aiden had flashbacks of his sister, Chloe, running up to him, sweetly taking his hand and walking to school together. Kate noticed that the hero's face had changed somehow. Suddenly, he said that it seemed she had chosen the wrong person. Kate was taken aback. Time seemed to stand still. She asked what he meant. How could Aiden displease her? She asks him not to run away like a coward, but to tell her. Aiden suddenly took her hand and led her somewhere. They sat down on a bench near the playground. And then the hero told that he had killed a man. Aiden insulted his late mother with words that should not have been spoken. She was killed, and even earlier his younger sister was finished off. And so Aiden is looking for the killer to take revenge, and then he will surrender to the police. Suddenly, Kate exhaled, saying that this was the way it should be. To the hero's surprise, she said that such bastards should be killed. But does Aiden really think she'll believe him? Why would he say that if he knew she'd report him to the police? The hero replied that Kate says what she feels, but he always holds back. Her actions are conducive. Okay, Kate suggested, summing it up. Aiden wants to say that he doesn't need to be loved because he's going to rot in prison anyway. The hero apologized if he misunderstood. Kate looked at him and asked if he really didn't like her. Aiden started to panic, saying not really, but suddenly she shut him up. The girl is happy that he doesn't hate her. He'll think about the bad when it comes. As for Kate's future, she asks to forget about it and enjoy the moment. With Aiden, she is such a fool, she does not care about the future. So she'll just love the one she already likes. Kate is an expert on unrequited love. Later, when it hurts, she is ready to cry a lot. But now she just wants to enjoy their relationship and asks not to push her away. And Aiden shouldn't love anyone at all. The result is obvious. And after her words, Kate laid her head on his shoulder. The hero did not push her away and stroked her head in response. 3 days later, all the fighters gathered and met Chief Puck. Suddenly, Lancey noticed Aiden and asked who else he was. Puck said he was a friend Michael had sent to help. Bruce wouldn't pay much for anything. Lancey snorted, well, Michael had really sent just one man, and that was just for show. He cautiously told Aiden that if he accidentally died here, it would be a futile sacrifice for someone else's family. However, our hero simply remained silent. Lancey said he couldn't help, so he could go. Carter was a little taken aback by such directness. He walked up to Aiden, put his arm around his shoulder, and said that they would take care of Bruce themselves. But if anyone tries to run away, our hero must caress them with a club, standing outside. Aiden replied that he understood and left. Lancey and Carter laughed. This guy with a fork was tough, but he obediently slunk off to stand guard. Well, they'll tie everyone up themselves. What else do you need? They hope they won't beg for mercy. But the guys don't even know who they just said all this to. Chief Pack sat down and began to wait. However, Bruce did not come. Carter said he got scared and all the fighters laughed. However, unexpectedly, the car drove into the parking lot. The car blinded everyone with its headlights, and the long-awaited guest, Director Yun, emerged from it. He came alone as agreed, so Bruce asked who the two were. He meant Lancey and Carter. Pak replied that he was being overcautious and apologized for his caution. Yun grinned and the boss asked where the money was. Bruce just walked in, and although the parking lot on the first floor is empty, there are several dozen people hiding on the second. Pak and his men wanted to seal the exit from above and corner Director Yun. However, Bruce showed his bloody hand. He started there. Pak stood up nervously. Yun chuckled, saying that there was no need to apologize. He had come to rip their throats out. Chief Pak is furious and yells at Bruce for being such a bastard. Carter ordered all fighters to attack and they clashed with Yun's men. Meanwhile, Michael picked up Jake in Namyangju by car. Hart suggested that they go faster. He came because, as Jake said, there was no one else. Michael couldn't leave Chairman Pak alone. The man apologized. He thought that now, with Bruce blind in one eye, this was his last chance. Michael understood and then asked about family. Well, for starters, Jake is alone. Still, Mr. Hart looks at the man with great suspicion. Michael and Chairman Park's men did a good job of holding off Director Yun's men, especially Carter. Bruce looked at all this and took it as an invitation for him to take matters into his own hands. He pounced on Carter from behind and hit him in the face. The guy didn't lose his composure, quickly stood up, tried to hit Bruce, but he blocked his fist. Director Yun threw Carter over his back and slammed his head into the ground. Bruce said he would go first and lead the way and the rest should follow him. Director Yun instantly rushed after Chairman Park. Lancey stepped between them and shielded the boss. This gave Chairman Pak an opportunity to escape, however. Bruce got around Lancey and tripped the old man. Director White took Lancey on himself. Director Yun grabbed him by the neck and told him to put the seals. The sins of Chief Pak will become his. The old man gritted his teeth and said that he would put them, but let him go. Chief Pak wants mercy, but Bruce says 4 fingers are enough to make the seal. The old man asked him not to do this, but Director Yun grabbed him by the throat and stabbed him with a knife. Chairman Park's men are in shock. Is this really the end? What should they do now? Bruce said that he would spare those who came over to his side, but kill the rest. He also called Director White, who came running right away. Director Yun demanded that his thumb be cut off for him, and immediately sit down to draw up documents and then go to Cole Hope. Bruce asked who came after Director White in the hierarchy. A man named John immediately ran up, shouting that it was him. Director Yun told him to finish off those who were not with them. Bruce himself got into the car, where a whole mountain of documents had already been prepared. He watched as Sean White cut off Chairman Pak's finger. Afterwards, he obediently brought it to Bruce. Director Yun took out some ink and immediately began to stamp all the documents. He asked why Sean was frozen and told him to get behind the wheel quickly. When the boss left, John told everyone who surrendered to drop their weapons and kneel. Most of the fighters obediently followed the order except for one. It was Lancey. John ordered his men to kill him, and he suddenly rushed towards the emergency exit. A crowd of Director Yun's fighters chased after him. Meanwhile, Michael and Jake were driving to the designated place when several cars blocked their way. Michael stopped the car and got out. A crowd of fighters were already waiting for him. Their leader, Christian Kirby, said they would organize a funeral for Hart. He must understand that he will not survive. Michael looked at Jake, who was desperate in the car. Indeed, they must have threatened the chief, too. Michael didn't lose his composure and got into a fighting stance. Lancey ran onto the landing and panicked, telling Aiden to open the emergency exit quickly. However, a club flew into his back and he fell. Bruce's fighters, led by John, had already entered the room. Lancey started beating the floor in despair. He couldn't believe that he was going to die like this, like a dog. But suddenly Aiden came up to him and picked up the club. The man asked what he was doing. What else? The hero follows Lancey's orders. Carter said that they would take care of Bruce themselves. But if anyone tried to run away, Aiden was supposed to caress them with a baton standing outside. It seems the moment has come. Michael punched one of Christian's fighters and then went after the rest. Suddenly, Kirby told everyone to disperse. He came closer and offered to fight one-on-one. But is it really fair? A knife against the fists? Christian said that if Michael is unhappy, he should take a knife too. Hart took off his jacket and put it on the hood. Christian immediately ran towards him. At that moment, Michael quickly grabbed the jacket back and threw it in his opponent's face. And while he was confused, he tried to hit. However, Christian was able to dodge. He started waving the knife, but Michael was quicker. However, as luck would have it, he slipped on a stone and fell. Christian laughed and started to approach. He ordered everyone to hit, and then he jumped in with a knife. Meanwhile, Bruce's fighters stopped on the stairs. John asked if our hero was going to fight them. Lancey screams that Aiden is an idiot. He clearly told him to run. If he wants to die, then let him die himself, and the man ran away. And the hero continued to stand motionless. One fighter rose up to him, but Aiden didn't even blink. The man wanted to swing, but immediately received a blow to the head and rolled down the stairs. Aiden turned to John with wild eyes and told him to ask politely, and then he would spare him. This only made the men laugh, and they rushed in a crowd to kill him. Aiden jumped from one railing to another, kicking and hitting the men with his club. John was no longer laughing so much. A significant part of his subordinates had been neutralized. Aiden jumped down in a flash and dealt with the rest. John ran away in fear and hid in the utility room upstairs. However, no one was blocking the hero's path anymore, and he followed him. John said in a trembling voice that it was wrong to beat people like that. Aiden raised his baton at him. The man tries to stop him, saying that this is not right. John backed away, and when he reached the wall, he threw down his club, fell to his knees, and said that he surrendered. Bruce was already tired of signing hundreds of documents and asked Sean how much longer. White replied that they were almost there. They had to get it to Cole, whoever he was, as soon as possible. Bruce, of course, is offended that he has to grovel before this worthless person. At this time, Cole Hope was sitting in his office, thinking everything over. Bruce changed his clothes and came to the office. The secretary led him to Chairman Hope. Director Yun bowed and said hello. Cole immediately demanded the documents, and Bruce handed them to the secretary. Also, Director Yun noticed a man sitting next to the chairman. He seemed to be looking into Bruce's soul. Christian stabbed, but Michael managed to roll to the side, and then he jumped onto the slope. He caught on a branch and fell head over heels. Christian's men ran after him. Suddenly, Michael noticed his Jeep on the road. Jake opened the door and told Mr. Hart to get in quickly. They needed to hurry. So, Michael ran to the car as best he could, quickly got in and drove away. Luckily, this time, everything worked out. Cole looked at the documents carefully. Some of them were stained red. That is, Bruce received all powers from Director Pak. Chairman Hope asked what the documents were stained with. Director Yun replied that it was a seal. Allegedly, Director Park put the seal. That's where the marks came from. Does Bruce really want to scare Cole? Mr. Hope is being lenient so far. Afterwards, the chairman smirked and asked if the rumors about Representative Yun were true. Bruce looked at him in surprise. They say he's been recruiting from Cole's subordinates lately. Bruce smiled and said that it was just a rumor. They knew each other. Sometimes they even drank. Cole sighed and told Yun to remember something. If he crosses the line, it won't be Mr. Hope who punishes him, but Do Hyun. Bruce replied that Do Hyun was providing them with a good life. He would be careful. I wouldn't want to get it from him. It seems like Representative Yun has already won everyone over to his side. He has good talent. Okay, Cole said the guy could go, and the secretary walked Bruce out. The chairman turned to the man sitting next to him. He asked if he had seen the guy's face. He was afraid of Cole. And he's the one who made so much noise? Hope is grateful to Do Hyun for tracking his movements in his territory and the desire to help, but he is not very pleased with it. The man replied that he understood this and then headed for the exit. Finally, he turned around and told the chairman that a wolf, even in an overlay skin, remains a wolf. As Bruce rode in the car, he thought, are only the chosen few worthy of ruling? There is no stopping him now. Cole Hope is nothing. The problem is Do Hyun. However, the train of thought was interrupted by a phone call from John. However, it was not John at the other end of the line. Bruce asked the guy if he was finished. Aiden said no. Director Yun smiled and asked who the guy was and why he was interfering with his work. Aiden advises to get used to it. Now he will always be in the director's way. Bruce laughed. Wasn't the guy a bit too bold? He would help the suicide die. Aiden said they'll see. He'll be the one to finish off Director Yun. Bruce Yuen. Back then, his name was Yun Mino. At 20, he was already a member of the judo team in the 90-kilogram category. However, at the age of 21, he accidentally killed a classmate while practicing a chokehold, and his athletic career was ruined. In the end, an agreement was reached with the family of the deceased, and Mino was sentenced to 4 years in prison. He was released at 25. He then changes his name to Bruce and continues to practice martial arts, making his debut at the professional level. He got recognition when he knocked out 5 opponents in a row. But then his personal information is published online. This caused a storm of criticism, and he was expelled from the association almost immediately. A year later, he became the head of security at Gold, and the rest is known to all. Bruce betrays his boss and quietly expands his influence. That's it. Emily Maxwell from the Soyan Group told everything. In the office sat the same man who was with Chairman Hope. Soyan Chairman David Anderson said that having someone like that at Gold was probably a big nuisance. He pitches Nolan the idea of making Yoon a key figure in the Soyan Group. Nolan replied that Bruce hadn't hurt anyone, neither colleagues, nor family, nor acquaintances. but he had killed an authority figure for his own ambitions. He thinks that it is not worth opening the road to success for such people. David laughed. Nolan is as serious as always. He said he thought so too. Emily gave him a dirty look and he immediately switched. Looks like we need to deal with Cole Hope before he becomes a threat. Yes, his abilities are impressive, but he is too small for the Soyans. Nolan would like to draw attention to one more point. Bill and Steve from Bruce's team suffered colossal losses. Bill now has difficulty even walking. It looks like a revolution has begun in Bruce's empire. David said that was fine. They'd better not interfere and disappear quietly. But regarding this guy, it is unlikely that anyone below him will take him on. Nolan replied that he and his colleague were ready to watch Bruce. After all, it was their job. David thanked them. They would figure out how to act themselves. He would no longer give instructions and ask questions about this case. David asked simply to let me know when everything is resolved that the case is resolved. Nolan agreed with the chairman and left. Meanwhile, the Again bar is in full operation, and Chris has an important conversation in his office. Michael says that all rights to the brand are transferred to them, just like the rights to the business. Damn, Chris just got out of the hospital and this happens. Aiden says he hasn't heard from Bruce since he was called. He's been laying low. He may look stupid, but he's actually cunning, and the quieter he is, the harder he will hit. Chris asks what they should do and what Jake thinks. But after his betrayal, the man doesn't even know what to say. Come on. Michael started to suspect Bruce when he said he'd left his family and was now alone. He successfully deceived Jake, and now the man has nothing to say. Michael did not know about it. Aiden asked his friends if he could give his opinion. Naturally, everyone was interested. As far as the hero knows, Seoul is dominated by a powerful organization called Do-hyun. Its board of directors consists of 12 people, each of whom has power. One of them is Cole Hope. He created 17 subordinate organizations. Large companies like distribution are controlled by 3 or 4 other subordinate organizations. Even if Bruce outsmarts Cole and expands his influence further, he only has 2 places to go. And it won't be easy. Aiden says the other board members are more experienced than Cole. Then Bruce will turn his attention to the provinces. Yes, Michael says he can do it. Chris remembers what he said before attacking the boss, that Seoul is occupied by Do-hyun, so Bruce will expand his influence, already in Namyangju or Pangyo. But for now, he will simply pay Cole, and when the time comes, he will take Seoul. Chris thinks this is just the ravings of a madman. And then Aiden said that for this reason they should capture Namyangju and Pangyo. Chris says that this is madness. But the hero continued, in Seoul, Bruce's obstacle will be Do-hyun. Our guys must block his escape routes. Then they will use his own methods. They will cut off his flow of capital. Aiden picked up the dart and threw it straight at the bull's eye. And ultimately, Director Yun will be eliminated. Michael smiled. He told Chris to put his hand up if he was with them and ready to go crazy together. Aiden put his hand down, Jake not without hesitation, but also, Chris can't believe it. Are they really going to compete with Bruce? But they are not comparable in strength, and it is too risky. The boys gave Chris a disapproving look, and he had no choice but to put his hand in. So now all 4 are in business. Bruce's secretary has been very worried for the last few days. The boss hasn't moved for 3 days now. She's afraid that something serious might happen. Suddenly, the bell rang in his office. The secretary said it was Sean calling. Bruce said to connect. Director White said that Director Pack was inspecting the facility right now. Again refused. They say they have a different form of share distribution. Michael Hart is there now. Bruce asked how this was different in form. Michael trusted Director Pack and got the business. The difference is that the key shareholding was in the subsidiary again, and he was just bought out by Michael, so again has no reason to interfere with the process. Sean began to compare the date of their contract with the date of the stock purchase, but Bruce chose not to interfere. Director White was surprised. Yun told him not to interfere. It looks like they agreed to bring John back there. Sean was driving in the car and thinking. Christian wasn't punished for what happened to Cole. Bruce is still holding on to John. Clearly, there's something not being agreed upon here. In Cole's 17 divisions, there were only 2 candidates, Stewart and Jordan. Michael's team will meet them at one of the designated locations. They will probably need outside help, and when they get together, something interesting will begin. Chris and Aiden walked through the evening Namjoon and looked for a place on the map, and when they arrived, they were surprised that it was so empty. They even doubted whether they really belonged there. Aiden suggested they go in, and they ended up in the HR department. There were several girls and men sitting there. Chris asked if Principal Leslie was here. The man didn't understand what kind of new ones they were. Suddenly, the director called him and said that the Ultra karaoke room needed 2 people. The guy on the couch told 2 girls to go to Ultra. One of the girls walked past Aiden and couldn't help but say how cute he was. The guy at the table said that if Chris didn't want to get punched in the face, he should get out of here. Chris smiled and replied that they were here on business. The man laughed, asking if they were really opening a karaoke bar. They could have just called. And then Aiden intervened. He said that they wanted to expand their influence in Seoul in the Sinsadong area, and so they look for someone to subjugate. Chris is shocked by such directness. However, bandits who intimidate others can also be intimidated. Are these greenhorns coming to take over their business? Aiden replied that that was exactly it, and the man laughed. He came close to the hero and said that only over his dead body. The other men rose from the couch and surrounded Aiden. A few seconds later, one of them flew out of the window and fell onto the broken glass. That man hiding behind the girls finally asked what our heroes wanted. Aiden and Chris were taken to a separate room, and the man brought the boss to them. Leslie Wong, the head of Star Pa in Namyangju, looked and asked what kind of suckers they were. If they want to create an alliance, then he listens. Chris will start. They own a small bar in Sinsadong. Suddenly, Aiden interrupted him and told Leslie that this was not an alliance. Chris panics and asks what he is doing. Leslie made a satisfied gesture and asked, "What then?" Aiden said it was a warning. From now on, Leslie is subordinate to them. It's stupid to waste time on pleasantries and making agreements. These men are savages. We must subjugate them and immediately expand our possessions. Meanwhile, Michael was standing at the reception desk at the bar. Suddenly, a man came in whom he clearly did not expect. Could today really be the fateful day? Bruce came alone to talk. That's right, a bar is only for talking. Well, Michael told him to talk as much as he wanted, but not to bother the ladies. Bruce replied that he didn't need them, he needed Michael. Hart led the guest to a private room. It was quite bold to enter the enemy camp alone. Michael asked what they would talk about. Bruce replied that he worked at Gold. There, each element was subordinate to the other. Michael asked, "So what next?" "The world has already been created, order has been established, and everyone obeys it." But Bruce says there has been a split at the top and power has been divided. Up there, they are fighting for power over the world, and they are simply obeying the new master. And what does Bruce mean by this? Yun replied that he too would like to become the master of the world. Michael asked again. And Bruce asked, why not? Ethan Crisp, Klaus Forrest, Lee Jong-woo. Is it only they who have the right to own this world? Michael was shocked by these words. Bruce's very soul demands power. That is, he wants to surpass the two largest organizations in Seoul. Michael asked if he was afraid of death. But to get what you want, you have to risk your life. Is there anything more important to a man? However, why is he telling Michael this? Bruce invited him to join. He says that together they will create a new world. However, no matter what Bruce says, he is a scoundrel who betrayed the one who raised him. But Yun said that for the future, this is just a past stage. Can the path to world domination be paved without bloodshed? Well, Bruce asks why Michael submits to an order created by others. And why does he condemn the one who wants to build a new world? Michael said Bruce was a traitor. Let Yun know the man was barely restraining himself from killing him on the spot. Bruce chuckled and replied that Michael was delirious. Blackmail is the method of the strong. After that, Yun stood up and left the room. Meanwhile, Kate tried to reach out to Aiden, who was ignoring her again. Seeing the creepy man, she decided to leave quickly. And then Bruce, passing by, quietly said that if she wanted to live, she should quit this job. Kate froze in place, trying to understand what this all meant. Aiden has already dealt with all of Leslie's subordinates. The man crawled on his knees to the hero, and then Aiden told him to bow his head, and he immediately obeyed. That's the relationship they have. Aiden and Chris rule, and Leslie obeys. The hero told him to sign the equity participation agreement and leave. Suddenly, Aiden noticed a strange expression on Chris's face. He said that our hero is intimidating people. The hero said that he was simply demonstrating the difference in strength and quickly subduing. However, Chris can't believe his eyes. Aiden is exactly the same as Bruce Yoon now. After the business, they were driving back. The hero decided to break the silence and apologized, namely for what happened. Aiden can't stop talking about his resemblance to Bruce. Chris recalled how he talked about Do Hyun attacking Ethan and Klaus before making his presence known in Seoul. Ethan is a simple street fighter. With his immense strength and impartiality, he quickly crushed his enemies and gained influence. And Klaus was a country bumpkin from Gangwon-do and still made his way to Seoul. He met William Phelps. He deliberately gave simpletons very difficult missions. William suggested trying to bring back his karaoke. The building where the karaoke was located originally belonged to the Hwanggan Silop Company, which William belonged to. Business was bad and the owner lost his karaoke business. Klaus and his assistants quickly sorted out what had happened and returned the karaoke to William in one day. Klaus then promised to sort it out, but in exchange it would become their base and they would be freed from paying rent. William looked at the villagers in surprise. Klaus had put his life on the line then. After this, his influence increased dramatically and he earned the favor of local merchants. His main strategy was to gain the trust of the people around him. If someone attacks someone, Klaus will always act as a defender and will never start a fight first. Later, many organizations in the EC said that they were famous for their respect for their opponents. And all thanks to this man. So Chris asked if Aiden understood. Strength is needed to win the trust of supporters. It captures hearts, and that's the only way you can expand real power. And Aiden seems eager to get revenge and fight Bruce. Chris said it would be better not to use him and Michael for personal revenge. He will not forgive the hero for this. When the guys arrived at the bar, Michael said that Bruce had come. He knows Hart's nature well. Michael is not a criminal and will not score alone. Still, his behavior was pretty bold. What a bastard. Chris asked him what he wanted. Bruce switched places with John, which doesn't seem like much of a Bruce thing to do. He wants to justify the opportunity that has presented itself. He will probably come back. Well, the matter in Namyangju has been settled. Representative Leslie has agreed to cooperate. Next week, Chris will meet with a representative of another company on his recommendation. Aiden immediately said it was a trap. Michael thought Leslie had set a trap. However, it's about Bruce. There's something fishy about it. Usually such sudden conversations serve as bait. Michael asked if Bruce needed to lure them into a trap. Aiden replied that not them themselves, but those with whom they cooperate. Bruce's visit will sow anxiety, which may cause the heroes to rush into an alliance agreement. Michael thought about these words. This may indeed be a calculation to get rid of everyone at once. Michael said that made sense, but what to do then? Aiden said that when Director Park is removed, there will be two left, Stewart and Jordan. They most likely already know about Bruce and are aware of his activities. I see they must have already felt the threat. Michael suggested contacting Stewart, but Aiden said no. They plan to eliminate anyone who contacts their targets. It's better not to interfere. Chris asked, what if they start to follow them? Will they just sit and wait to die? Aiden replied that they were nothing to Bruce. If the heroes sat out, he would remove Stewart and Jordan earlier. But you have to have a convincing justification for people. So Aiden suggested reconsidering their project. They are at the very beginning now, so they can win somewhere 1 or 2 weeks. During this time, you need to establish as many alliances as possible in the suburbs and begin to control public opinion. Let Bruce think that the guys don't have enough strength to challenge him yet. And then when Bruce attacks Stewart and Jordan, the heroes will help them. Then they will show their strength. Michael looked at Aiden in surprise. And the hero remembered Chris's words today. The guys must light up the hearts of their allies so that they can trust them completely. For trust is the only path to true power. At Guangheng Company, a girl was scolding her subordinates. She is irritated by their endless sorry. The girl's name is Stephanie Scott, and she is a representative of Guanghun. Before his death, my father said that a man is the only one who can be trusted. How can Stephanie trust him after that? Rumors are flying around that Bruce leaked information to Park Sang-young. The girl demands to find Bruce, his house, roots, and simply eliminate him. However, the difficulty is that he has 3 houses, and the same car leaves all of them at the same time. In addition, Bruce himself is very strong, so it's not that easy to get to him. Stephanie asks what they'll do then, as long as Bruce surrenders himself to them? What a brilliant plan. And why won't Chung Ma's representative cooperate? He's in the same situation as Guangheng. We need to stop this before it's too late. However, a representative of Chan said he does not work with women. Stephanie threw her name tag down in anger. It was driving her crazy. Well, sexism is rampant in this country. The man told her not to worry. Even if Bruce does get stronger, his men are a disorganized bunch. Maybe he should ask Cole Hope for help. Stephanie snorted, saying that he did everything for money and suggested that it would be better to talk to Park O-sang or Cho Young-kang. The subordinate replied that it was somehow improper to interfere in the affairs that were taking place under Cole's command. Stephanie is furious about what to do. She asks if they have anyone smart and demands to hire someone. They have to act first. The man said there was still Michael. It's interesting that Bruce doesn't touch his business. They say Michael has recruited a bunch of powerful mercenaries, which is why Bruce doesn't touch him. Stephanie screamed and demanded to contact him immediately. Michael and Chris came to the noodle shop for lunch. Chris says this guy is a badass. He throws his words around so easily, it's scary. At first, Michael didn't understand who it was about, and Chris said it was about Aiden. Who else? While we're on the subject, he thinks Michael is overprotective of him. 3 days ago, Aiden said that Bruce would soon attack the remaining 2 districts, and that the guys should get ahead of him and capture Namyangju and Pangyo, and now he changed his mind. Michael smiled and asked what happened, and that he uses them for his own purposes. He thinks only about himself. Chris asked why the boss listens to him. Michael asked how Chris sees Bruce. He had been thinking about this since Yun came to again. Bruce is a difficult guy, so confident that he showed up all alone. Chris disagrees. He said that Bruce just knows that Michael won't touch him. That's just the boss's character. But it still takes courage, even if Bruce has thought it all out. At that moment, the cook brought the men ramen. Michael said Bruce really wanted to put pressure on him. He wanted Hart to beg for help from Guang Hong and Chung Ma, and then he will ask Michael who he chose. And LeBruce gave him a chance to survive and let him blame himself. And in the end, he will kill Michael. Yes, Chris agreed that director Yun likes that kind of thing. Why does he act like a jerk but at the same time try to make our heroes look bad? According to Aiden's plan, they will form an alliance on the outskirts, and when Bruce attacks Guang Hyung or Chung Ma, they will help. But Chris doesn't understand how they will know when that will be. Who knows? Michael says things might not go as Aiden planned. His predictions will start to crumble, and if they follow his plan, losses will be inevitable. Chris asked if Michael understood all this. Then why? Aiden wouldn't listen to a man now. But as soon as he experiences the consequences of the mistake himself, Aiden will become Michael's weapon. When the men returned, they said that Aiden and Jake could rest, however. They pointed to the side. Stephanie sat there surrounded by security. She asked if Michael knew his father. She was Stephanie Scott. So she was the new president of Guang Hung's company. Stephanie was angry that her father had died 3 years ago, and he was still surprised by his new face. Michael apologized and asked what was the matter. In general, the girl will speak directly. Stephanie wants to hit Bruce before he hits her. Date, next Wednesday. Chris and Aiden were shocked and asked why there was such a hurry. What do you mean, hurry? Stephanie said they were late. Hadn't the men heard the story of Sayuksin? One day, Yu Yunbu was assigned to guard Seijo. Thinking that this was his chance, he was about to strike, but Sun Sam Moon stopped him by saying, "Now is not the time." If he had just swung his sword, it would have been all over. But they kept waiting for the right moment. They hesitated, and in the end they were discovered and killed. Chris didn't get it. Damn, Stephanie was too into Joseon dynasty history. Anyway, she walked up to Michael, put her leg up on the wall, and suggested that they create their own story. Michael asked how they could help her. Stephanie heard that they have a mercenary and wants to see him. Michael replied that he didn't have any special mercenary. Stephanie didn't believe it. As she understood it, he didn't want to cooperate. Michael suggested that it would be better to contact Chung Ma, but he doesn't like that Stephanie is a woman. They'll deal with him later. Now it's Bruce's turn. Michael's refusal will greatly disappoint the girl. He apologized and repeated that they really couldn't help her. They couldn't possibly compare to Stephanie's size. Bruce himself won't go with Namgoon and Kim Chano. Stefaner said that the more people the better and asked whether Michael was going to refuse anyway. He replied that it wasn't that he didn't want to. It was that they didn't have the strength. They were trying to survive themselves. Stephanie snorted, called him a coward, gave him the finger and walked away. Bruce got a message about next Wednesday, Guang Hung Sa, time unknown. Michael refused to join Chung Ma on their own. Yun told his aides to gather everyone for him next Tuesday. Then he called someone about the same thing. Bruce asked to find him a swordsman. They said he arrived today with contraband and would soon leave for Seoul. He and Yun could meet tomorrow. Her name is Watanabe. She uses the longsword Sadakuda. Bruce asked if he could see her in action. The man on the other end of the line laughed, saying that Yun seemed to be a big boy now. More of him. Bruce just demands to do as he asks. So he said to come to Namyangju to see Leslie. Aiden asked Michael if he could take part in that fight with Bruce next Wednesday, but the man said that they would not interfere. The hero tried to object. Michael understands that he wants to catch Bruce, but you can't change your own plans every day. Michael said to work better and meet the clients. Meanwhile, Watanabe arrived in Namyangju. She told those present that she had no complaints against them. She just needed someone to show off her skills to. Leslie asked if anyone knew Japanese. He didn't understand what she was talking about or why she had a sword. Another man told her to throw her out. He didn't understand a word, but it already sounds disgusting. And then with one swing of her sword, Watanabe cut off his head. Within seconds, after a few short screams, all the men were stabbed to death and the office was covered in blood. The girl hid the sword and began to wipe the drops off her glasses. 2 men entered the office. Director Leslie wanted to introduce them to Michael. However, when they opened the door, she bumped into someone's head. They were Dylan, Hwang Jape's boss from Namyangju, and Grayson, Hwang Jape's commander from Namyangju. Right in front of their feet lay the severed head of Director Leslie. Meanwhile, at the again bar, Michael told Jake that they needed to go somewhere urgently. Chris was surprised and asked where they were going. The boss replied that they would be back soon. Wow, there are no customers in the bar yet. Chris doesn't understand how anyone can make a living like this. Suddenly, Ryan came and asked the boss if Irene had told him that she was moving to another place. Chris ran into the girl's room in shock and asked where she was suddenly going. Irene replied that she needed money and that business was no longer going well here. Chris promised to do something and said that they were family. Suddenly, Irene asked if he would give her $200 million. Chris hesitated. Now it became clear that she wouldn't give it. He asked why she needed so much. Okay, Irene just dropped by to say hello. We're not strangers after all. Chris is curious where she is going. He wants to see this place, how it works. But Irene herself doesn't know. They say this club has a share in K Entertainment. Chris's eyes darkened. The girl continued to tell that this is a VIP club. It is mostly visited by investors in the entertainment industry. They say they earn $500 million a day there. Chris didn't know that Bruce was running such a secret club and at the same time openly cooperating with K-Enter. In any case, Irene thanked for everything. It's somehow sad to let her go like this. They should at least organize a corporate party. The girl said goodbye to manager Aiden. Waiter Lewis asked if she was really leaving. Irene nodded and said that if she earned a lot, she would treat him to something tasty. And then she left. Kate doesn't understand what she needs to do to earn $500 million a day. Meanwhile, Michael's car was racing through the forest at such a breakneck speed that Jake had to hold on. Michael asked if the man knew he had been in contact with Namyang Ju. And does anyone in their circle even know about this case? As far as Michael knows, no. But news came that director Leslie from Namyang Ju had been killed. Michael asked if Jake was going to betray him and demands an answer. That very day, Bruce said that Jake's job was to infiltrate Michael and feed him information about him from the inside. So the man's task was to first pretend to be a traitor, and then pretend to change your mind and actually cooperate with them. Christian created the right atmosphere for this. Jake then asked why it was necessary to use such a trick twice. Bruce replied that all is fair in a fight. Even if no one takes the bait the first time, the second time. Jake also doesn't like that he's like a bat, clinging to everything as best he can. But he screams that he is fighting for his survival. Michael asked up to what point Jake had told them and whether all of his plans had been revealed. And suddenly, after a short silence, the man took out a folding knife and stabbed Michael. The man managed to put his hand out to avoid being hit in the body and turned the steering wheel from shock. Jake screamed and apologized, but he wants to live too. And as a result, the car drove off the cliff. Just a little bit more and she would have fallen down. Michael got out of the car and saw the whole situation. He immediately extended his bloody hand to Jake and told him to grab it. Michael knows he's not serious. The man only listened to Bruce because he wanted to live. So he yells at Jake to grab it or he'll die. However, the man turned away and began to apologize. He was so ashamed. Michael couldn't resist and said to give me his hand quickly. He said that everything was fine. The ground began to crumble under the weight of the car. Jake said that this would be his punishment. The man burst into tears. He wanted to survive and now he's paying for it. Michael asked to stop talking nonsense and give him his hand already. At this point, Jake shouted that Guang Hung would actually make his move on Tuesday, not Wednesday. So Michael has to hit too. Jake pushed him away and at that moment the car fell off the cliff. Jake asked to take into account that everything will happen next Tuesday. Michael ran to the cliff and only managed to see the explosion. At that time, Irene arrived in Sinsadong. A girl named Catherine was already waiting for her there. She said to follow her. Catherine pressed a button on her phone and a long corridor with many figures opened up in front of them. Catherine said that their clients are influential people, and Irene's job is to serve them under any circumstances. First, they sign a contract. You can't just leave here. Catherine said she recently brought a guy, but he was so rowdy that they had to throw him out, and after a while, he died. Yes, he was driven to suicide. Catherine gave Irene the opportunity to ask questions. She asked if K Entertainment was really in charge here. Catherine replied that on the surface, yes. When the time comes, they will go on stage. Bruce UN is just a signboard. They are much wider and stronger. Irene asked if the salary was really $500 million a day. Catherine nodded. If the client likes the girl, he can give more. Irene must be innocent and defenseless. Catherine says there is no need to show off your pride here. The girls are servants. The surveillance cameras see everything, so if there are any problems, the management will solve them. Everything that happens here stays within these walls. If Irene decides to threaten the police, she will pay with her life. They reached the end of the corridor and Catherine pressed the letter B on the wall. And here is the waiting room. The girls said to come in. There were a lot of girls in white masquerade masks. Catherine welcomed to the Club B, and Madame Catherine herself is one of the managers. Michael got to the bar and told everything while Aiden was bandaging the wound. Chris can't believe the director did this. Jake was a weak man and Bruce used that to great advantage. Next Tuesday, Bruce attacks Guang Hung. The heroes must take action. They won't open on Tuesday. They'll tell all employees not to come to work and they'll hide themselves. Suddenly, the waiter Louis knocked on the door. He timidly said that people came to them from Namyangju. Michael told Aiden to stay at the checkout and Chris would go with him. So next Tuesday, Aiden thought maybe they'll catch Bruce. It was Dylan and Grayson who bowed to Michael. Long time no see. He asked if Dylan had become a representative yet. The men shook hands. Dylan got into the car and suggested they continue the conversation there. Michael thanked them for letting him know. Dylan smiled. The representative had saved him once. Leslie wanted to introduce them. The man went to the establishment to have a drink and chat, but accidentally saw something he shouldn't have. Michael asked to tell more about this. In fact, Dylan said nothing special happened. There were about 10 severed heads lying on the floor, mixed with arms and legs. The killer's blade was clearly very sharp. Chris and Michael were surprised, but it was a long blade. People were used for sashimi, you might say. By the way, Grayson sometimes uses blades, so I'll tell you what else he noticed. He did a little digging around in the bodies. They were actually turned into sashimi. However, there were almost no traces of punctures, only a few on the neck. Grayson suspects that slashing attacks were used primarily. Michael said the killers appeared to be wielding a komdo. It's a Korean variation of kendo. However, Grayson is certain that it was the work of one person. Michael and Chris are unclear as to where Bruce gets such a fighter. Maybe he hired someone. Rumors about mercenaries have been circulating for a long time. Michael doesn't like this. Bruce became more influential than he thought. Meanwhile, Aiden informed all the bar staff about the day off. Kate found it strange that for the second time Tuesday would be a day off. Lewis asked her since when she had been on first-name terms with her manager. Chloe said it was none of his business. The weekends have become more frequent. Ryan is outraged, saying that this is not how you earn money. Aiden suggested just ending the workday. Kate went to get her things and simultaneously wrote to Irene. She asked how she was doing and told her about another day off. Kate thought maybe she should go to Irene. But something was strange. Was Irene so busy that she didn't even answer? Aiden walked past and asked if Kate was leaving. The girl replied that she was coming and asked to say, "Kate, let's go." The hero only said dryly, "Bye." Kate was indignant and demanded to be called by her name. Aiden apologized, he just couldn't remember. The girl doesn't understand why the guy doesn't call her by name. Suddenly, a reply came from Irene. She told Kate to come. At Club B, a worker was removing Irene's body from the ceiling. Catherine had Irene's phone in her hands and she asked when Kate would come. The girl said that they had the following Tuesday off, so she suggested it. Catherine sent the address. She came to look at Kate's photos and was pleased. Everything was fine. Not even a day has passed and already a suicide attempt. I'm fed up. Michael and Dylan were talking on the Pukak Skyway, a hiking trail. Dylan asked if Michael was a blade specialist. Hart asked in response when that had happened. He hadn't held them in his hands for a long time, hadn't even looked in their direction. But Dylan heard that he had a real katana. Yes, Michael replied that there was. It's in again in the wine cellar, I guess. He hasn't touched it in so long. Dylan asked me to ask an indiscreet question. Bruce's attack on Gwanghung is coming next Tuesday, and at this time, K Entertainment will be empty, so it's worth taking advantage of this. Michael asked if the man wanted to hit Bruce's empty lair. Dylan agrees to help. They will gather 70 people. In theory, that should be enough. Yes, Michael knows that he can't wait forever. Alas, inaction will not change anything. Stephanie received a call from Michael, who said that Bruce was planning to attack them a day earlier than planned. The subordinate says it's a chance. Bruce doesn't know they know, so they can finish him off. From today on, Stephanie will pretend to be very busy. On Tuesday, she will also come to work and pretend to be alone. They attack from the 5th floor and reinforcements from the 3rd. Attacking from 2 floors at the same time is great. Bruce will probably be in the vanguard. Gwang-hyung needs to place Paul on the 5th floor. Hugo will be outside. When ready, they will contact Stephanie and she will come later. The girl is looking forward to the moment when she will finally get rid of Bruce. Deputy Tom from the corporate PR department of Soyan Company called the director and said that no suspicious activity was observed. John, Sean, and Christian walked in and out. Nolan responded that this was suspicious activity. Tom laughed and apologized. He asked how much they could interfere. Nolan says this is basically Cole's land. If they find out Soyan is watching his territory, they won't like it. So they only intervene when Cole doesn't pose a threat. Tom started to say something but stopped abruptly. He looked out the window. It had just been sunny, and now suddenly there were clouds. It's not clear, they didn't seem to be predicting rain. The guy didn't even take an umbrella. In such sad, rainy weather, Stephanie thought about her father. And Aiden closed the bar and went on a mission with a group of fighters. And Kate, following the route we were already familiar with, arrived at the place where Catherine met her. The woman led her down the same corridor and told her about the agreement. Since Kate had entered here, it wouldn't be that easy anymore. Recently, Catherine hired one and she got so upset that she had to be fired, and then she died. Maybe it was suicide, or was she forced to commit suicide? Kate stopped abruptly. She hadn't seen anything from Catherine yet, so she thought she could leave. But the woman repeated once again that it was not so easy to leave here. You have to fulfill your obligations. This is also a kind of freedom. Kate was in a terrible panic, but there was no other choice but to go further. Dozens of cars with fighters drove up to Yoon's office. Suddenly, Chris noticed that Aiden was nowhere to be seen, but he was definitely there when they left. Looks like he went to Bruce. Maybe he was planning to defect to him. Michael said they don't need Aiden here. If he passes something on to Bruce, it's not critical. Chris wanted to say something about submission, but Michael suggested later. The main thing is that Chris stays here. The fighters, led by Dylan and Grayson, grabbed their batons and stormed into the office. Managers tried to communicate the alarm and the need to evacuate, but they were quickly hit over the head with a truncheon. Michael told Chris to control the lobby. 2 female secretaries came in to see Bruce, but he immediately sent them back. They looked at him in surprise, and he, with a clear order, said that they were free. The girls wanted to leave, but the path to Bruce's office was already completely blocked by armed men. They ran back into the office and asked the boss what to do. Bruce said the corridor was 2.4 meters wide. No more than 2 would come in at a time. He told them to lie under the table and not to come out until he said so, and Bruce himself left the office. Michael was shocked. Everyone thought that Yoon went to attack Gwang Hung. Does Michael really like robbing empty houses? Bruce said his guys would deal with Gwang Hyung. Why should he interfere? If this is true, then this is a godsend for Michael. His men began to run towards Bruce, but he quickly knocked the club out of one man's hands. He immediately picked her up and pounced on them. Bruce beat everyone he saw in front of him. Seconds later, he stood among a pile of bloody bodies. Bruce tore off his tie and said he would kill everyone. At that moment, Michael realized that the person standing in front of him was not a man, but a monster. Meanwhile, Christian had already arrived at the Guan Hung building with a crowd of his people. Stephanie watched through binoculars from a nearby hotel. A colleague called her. The door was left ajar on purpose. The plan was to lure Bruce into a large room on the 4th floor, lock him in, and have a showdown. However, Bruce was nowhere to be seen. The man assumed that he was delayed. Stephanie said to wait. It looks like he's arrived. But it wasn't Director Yun who got out of the car, but some girl. Could she really be Bruce's replacement? Meanwhile, Yun himself finished off a significant portion of the fighters. Grayson told his subordinates to disperse. Enough of senseless sacrifices, he suggests Bruce go one-on-one. He threw down his club and gestured for them to join the fight. Grayson began to swing the dagger, but Bruce kept dodging it like a snake. Grayson asked what was going on. Was Yun not strong enough? He was still dodging like a boy. Bruce said the man was good at nothing but talking. He threw off his tie, and while he was opening himself up, Dylan told all the fighters to attack. Michael is shocked that Bruce is fighting the crowd like this, empty-handed. Grayson lunged at him with a knife, but he twisted his arm and pinned him to the ground with his feet. And then there was a brief scream from a man. Bruce twisted Grayson's head. Devon shouts that Yun is alone and orders the fighters not to retreat. However, no one takes the risk. Suddenly, Michael's voice came from behind. He raised his baton and stood up. Michael just realized he needed to make sure. Bruce looked and said that the man had not practiced kendo for more than 10 years. Michael had abandoned it when he first took this path. He could not sully his sacred sword with dirty fights, but now he's thirsty for Bruce's blood. Did Yun really think he could handle him with his bare hands, too? Bruce just smirked. Michael doesn't yet know how strong the former national team member is. Meanwhile, a taxi pulled up to Gwang Hyung's building. Aiden walked out and heard screams coming from the 4th floor. In the conference room, Watanabe has already cut down many enemies. Employee Gwang Hyung asks, "What the hell is this?" A Japanese woman is helping Christian. It was the staff who lured them here to the assembly hall. It seems they thought there weren't enough of them. Stephanie's top assistant, Noah, said it was a trap. But it seems that things didn't go according to plan. Gwang Hyung will fight to the death. Christian noticed that this guy was talented and suggested that he join their side. With them, Noah will find fame and fortune. Does he really think the guy is capable of betraying his boss? Just like Bruce. Christian was about to answer when Watanabe suddenly asked if the conversation was over. Christian didn't understand anything but simply waved his hand at her. Suddenly, a guy ran out from behind Noah and asked if the Yun representative had said anything about him. Christine threw up his hands and said no. The guy screamed that this couldn't be. Noah asked what his close colleague was doing. The guy pulled out a knife and pointed it at him. He could be killed, debt and all that. His life was more important to him. Watanabe got tired of this empty talk and stabbed the guy. We'll start first. Noah can't believe that his comrade turned out to be a traitor. Michael tried his best to hit Bruce, who was surprised that Hart was still holding on. It is said that Dan in Kendo is 3 times more important than in other martial arts. It may not be a real sword, but Michael wields it with such destructive power. In Kendo, it is good to attack from a distance and then quickly reduce it. Upper attacks visually increase the distance between opponents. Bruce waited for the moment when Michael raised his hands and grabbed him under the chest, and then he threw it over his back and threw it at the wall. Bruce told the man to pick up the club quickly. Dylan is devastated that the boss has given up so quickly. Michael can't deny how strong Bruce is, but he's having a hard time fighting after getting stabbed in the arm by Jake. Since the upper strike left the body open, he decided to attack straight ahead. But while Michael was thinking, Bruce intercepted his club, and with his other hand, he grabbed the man's neck and pressed him to the ground. Bruce said that Michael is far from the level of the national team. Dylan, in a panic, shouts at his soldiers not to stand still but to attack. However, no one had the same enthusiasm anymore. Bruce said he was going to strangle the man now. Michael, barely able to speak, told Dylan and the others to run faster. While Bruce is busy with him, while he is still alive, the others can escape. Dylan couldn't bring himself to leave his boss. Director Yun said that the bastard was right. After Michael, he'll definitely go after Dylan. Bruce himself won't die, so the rest of us better run. And Dylan finally told all the fighters to retreat. Michael could only make heavy wheezing sounds. Bruce had said that blackmail was a privilege of the strong. Strong people deserve to dream. And Michael is nothing but a nobody. The fighters started running out of the elevator in a crowd towards the exit. Chris was completely confused. Dylan shouts at him to run faster, too. Chris asked what happened to the director, but Dylan asked him to run faster. They would talk later. That female employee watched all the horror through the glass of the office. Bruce noticed this. The girl was frightened by his furious gaze and immediately hid back under the table. Bruce entered the office, leaned under the table, and looked at them dirty. The girls were crying and begging not to kill them. Director Yun asked who was going to kill. He told them to hide, but they saw everything. Nothing can be done. With his bloody, merciless hands, Bruce killed innocent girls. How can he settle this? And in the conference hall, there was a real meat grinder. Watanabe kills everyone indiscriminately. Noah was the last one left. Christian said to keep him alive. He'll be bait for Stephanie. Watanabe didn't understand anything, so Christian translated the phrase, "let's spare him for now," into Japanese for her. Christian asks where Stephanie is. He demands to tell her that Guang Hung has won and to come here. Noah replied that he would not do this, and that it would be better to kill him immediately. Suddenly, everyone turned around at the screams coming from the corridor. All the fighters ran out and saw the figure of the guy. Christian asked who else it was. They all got caught. Noah also sees this guy for the first time. Aiden just asked where Bruce was. Christian ordered Watanabe to kill him. However, Aiden quickly grabbed the club and blocked the sword strike. Watanabe gestured for everyone to move away. Aiden asked if it was Sam Chiokto. The girl answered Sachokto. She was surprised that he knew Japanese. The hero replied that only a few kendo terms. Okay, then Watanabe asked if the guy understood that he wouldn't leave alive. After that, Aiden grabbed the baton tightly and said in Korean that he didn't understand her. The girl swung her sword straight at his face. However, Aiden blocked every one of her swings. Watanabe doesn't understand what it is, doesn't recognize the weapon. Christian took out his blade and wanted to intervene, but she stopped him. He asked what was wrong. He wanted to help. Watanabe said that this was her battle, and if anyone interfered, he would cut off her head. Christian didn't understand a word of it and why she was bothering him at all. Noah realized that this was his chance and jumped out of the window to escape. Christian shouted to his dogs to run after him, but they didn't know what to do with that guy, our hero. Christian said that the Japanese woman could handle it. I think she said not to interfere, so he ordered everyone to run after Noah. Watanabe told Aiden that such a sword is hard to find even in Japan. What self-control he has. She assumed he was into martial arts. Then the girl will teach him real fighting. Will return to life a year ago. Coach May saw Aiden reading something carefully. He was surprised that the guy did not leave. It was already 11 o'clock in the evening. Our hero raised his head and said that he was studying kendo here. Aiden had no idea that there were so many styles of kendo. Coach May said a lot, although it depends on the tournament. And some even enter the arena with spears. That day, Aiden read about a style that uses katanas. However, he doubted its practicality. Well, yes, the trainer said that in a fight it is easy to change the direction of this sword with one blow to the blade and suggested trying. He and Aiden took the bamboo and the trainer told them to imagine it as a standard-length katana. The coach told the hero to start, but he was so lightning fast that May himself barely dodged. The man said that Aiden would kill him and said to slow down. If such a weapon is handled incorrectly, it can cause injury. Aiden needed to practice and suggested more. The coach explained that defense is a way to shift the opponent's center of gravity. If he opens up for a moment, Aiden should quickly hit his wrist to neutralize him and then immediately hit him on the head. However, in sparring, our hero blocked the attack. He apologized, saying it was automatic. The coach deliberately attacked slowly. He asked why Aiden was so serious. It was a joke. Coach May told the student to smile wider. Aiden replied that he was smiling. However, no matter what his emotions were, his face always retained the same stony expression. The memories of that day will come in handy now more than ever. Our hero blocked every swing of Watanabe's katana, and after several dozen blows, a piece of the katana flew off. The teacher's method, steel pipe versus katana. Aiden has the power to resolve. Watanabe stepped back. She looked at her broken katana and remembered. Aiden once replaced Yuta at a tournament, Simasung. The team had an outstanding result, as many as 7 victories in a row. However, player Yuta quit kendo for personal reasons. Yes, due to Yuta's absence, they lost their chances of success. A replacement was needed. They called in someone who matched their strength. In the Korean arena, it was Aiden Collins. At that time, Watanabe was one of the spectators. She recognized the guy from Korea who had demonstrated the highest level in the arena. In front of her now was that same katana god. Through binoculars, Stephanie saw Noah jump out of the office. He ran into the alley and immediately called her. Noah told the principal that it was still raining outside, so he should not go out anywhere and stay inside. Stephanie didn't understand what the hell it was raining about. She asks to speak normally about what happened. In short, the operation failed. The plan with the 3rd and 5th floors didn't work. Then Stephanie asked what was wrong with their boys. Noah said that everyone was dead and asked her to stay put. He would contact her soon. Christian and his men were searching for Noah all over the area when he suddenly took out his phone and told them to wait. At that moment, a guy appeared in the alley where Noah was standing. He asked if he could come out. It seems he is being followed. If he stays in the corner, he will not be noticed in the dark. But the guy urgently needs to go to the toilet. At such an inopportune moment, Noah's phone rang. It was Christian. He started walking towards the sound of the ringtone. Let's get back to Aiden. He may have been good at competitions, but kendo is far from real combat. Watanabe understands that if he delays, he may lose. She needs to catch the right moment and finish it. The girl began to attack with even greater fury, but Aiden parried each of her blows until her katana broke again. The guy in the hood extended his hand. He asked for Noah's phone number, saying he would figure it out himself. The guy picked up the phone. Christian thought he was 100% sure he had Noah. However, when he came to the alley, he saw only some guy. Are they looking for the owner of the phone? The guy said he left it here and ran away in that direction. Christian told the fighters to catch up with Noah immediately. If the guy interferes, he'll be in trouble. He'll just pretend he didn't see anything, so he told me to take the phone. Yeah, Christian said the guy didn't see anything. If he goes to the police, he's done for. Aiden slashed at the katana again and again, sending small pieces of metal flying across the hallway. Watanabe distracted our hero for a second and took the shard of the katana with her bare hands. And then she threw it in his face. Naturally, Aiden's reaction is so fast that he knocks the shard away. The girl falls to the floor, and at that moment the hero hit her on the shoulder with all his might. A crowd of people gathered outside the Again bar, complaining that the sly bastards had closed the door and fled. But suddenly the man told John that someone was coming. It was a depressed Chris who came in, and the man thought he had escaped. Chris asked if he had decided to send them in exchange for the right to resell again. John replied that no, they just all had to die. Chris is in a bad mood, so he just told me to leave. If I touch him now, something bad might happen. John asks why a loser pretends to be cool. Posers are always worthless in reality. Watanabe lay on the floor, exhausted. Aiden took her and led her outside. At that moment, a white Jeep drove up to him. Stephanie opened the window and said that they had already met. She wanted Aiden to sit down. Stephanie asks if he's really going to drag this girl around with him. People are already looking at him askance. She said to sit down quickly, then they'll talk. Chris hit the man's head against the car window and then started kicking him. He dealt many blows, shouting that he had asked them to leave in a good way. Chris turned John's face into meat, and he told the rest of the uninvited guests to get lost before he killed them all. Stephanie arrived at the country house. There they and Aiden sat Watanabe against the wall. Stephanie called a doctor she knew, saying that they had a wounded woman and she needed help. She asked him to come urgently and bring an IV. The doctor will be here soon, but for now you can answer questions. Aiden said that this girl is Japanese and needs a translator. Stephanie smirked. She was an anime fan. She watched so much anime that one day she realized she spoke Japanese. Watanabe asked in a weak voice to kill her quickly. Stephanie replied in Japanese that she would not die until she said something useful. If this bitch wants to die without suffering, she should talk. Watanabe replied that it was funny. Stephanie was angry. This creature thinks she's joking. Then she took a hammer from the nightstand and came close. Well, in that case, Stephanie would make her suffer. Suddenly, Aiden received a message. Kate wrote that she couldn't work at the bar anymore. She left. And then she added that they probably wouldn't meet anytime soon. Aiden wrote for her to send infinity if something happened, or just the number 8. The hero said goodbye to Chloe. She got angry again and said that she was Kate. Meanwhile, the girl put on a mask and was led to the first client. If he wants Kate specifically, her position will change. Afterwards, the girl gave the mask to the butler. She took a deep breath, rang the bell, and the door opened. Kate walked in timidly. Meanwhile, the doctor had already arrived and put Watanabe on an IV. Stephanie said that she will not die. The girl asks who sent her to Korea and who is behind her. However, Watanabe still held on. Stephanie suggested that she either gouge out her eye or cut off her hand. She talked a little too much. She asked if the girl would die if her hand were cut off or her eye were gouged out. The doctor said to make sure she doesn't die. Then Stephanie took a knife from the kitchen. That would be enough. Watanabe screamed, asking if she couldn't treat people differently, and asked him to just kill her. Stephanie said that when she was 8 years old, she saw her father pour cement over a living person's head. Damn, Lee Young-woo showed up and banned the killings, so now she can't do that. Stephanie doesn't consider people to be people at all, so if Watanabe wants to die like a human being, she should speak up. Suddenly, Aiden said he would talk to her. It turns out he knows a little Japanese. Kate sat with a client in a luxury apartment with his hand on her leg. This is Mr. Kim Jong-han, who was considered as a candidate for future president. The man asked what was going on. Kate replied that she just hadn't expected to see him there. John Han told her about a saying, "The hero loves beautiful women. A real man should drink and have fun with women." John Han said not to worry. He's old now, he's not very good at it. Now he has been pushed aside even within the party. Without such little joys, a man would fall into depression. Kate is shocked that he says such a thing. John Han played a big role in the arrest of the gangster Ethan Crisp several years ago. The man laughed. This was roughly the positive image he had retained in the eyes of the people. If John Han had pulled off something big while that image was still alive, he might have cemented his position, but it wasn't enough. Kate sighed sadly. The man said that she spoke somehow too purely, too innocently. Her questions are rather naive. Kate, of course, doesn't understand this. John Han needs a conversationalist. Not someone who says one thing and thinks another, but a conversationalist like her. While the man went to get more alcohol, he asked if there were any more questions. Kate asked what his blood type was. John Han was surprised at first, but then he laughed. In the back room of Club B, there were many managers, headed by Catherine. They were watching the room where John Han was. It seemed like they could get him on their side. Catherine told someone on the phone how lucky she was. If Kate had been sent to a rabid dog, who knows what would have happened? Well, men always fall for women after all. The interlocutor said that he would soon return to Korea, so told Catherine to work well with John Han by then. By the way, she asked if the man would return with Kaolingi. Kaoling later, now the man is alone, everything in order. All this time, Catherine was talking in Chinese with a certain Xiao Ming. Meanwhile, Aiden asked if Watanabe considered himself a samurai, someone who would give his life for his master. Or is she a simple mercenary? And if so, who is she ready to die for? The girl answered, for her loyalty. She says not to bother and just kill her, just pull out the IV. Aiden asked what loyalty Watanabe held. She remembered the day she was sent to Namyangju. Bruce didn't believe her and wanted proof. Now Watanabe asked what kind of loyalty Aiden could offer her. He replied that she would not survive. The girl had suffered too much torture here. The hero also learned to wield a sword, and as a warrior, he can give her a quick and painless death. The Fellowship of Painless Death was his loyalty to her. Well. Watanabe was silent for a moment and then began to tell. There's something so big behind Bruce Young that Aiden can't even imagine. They don't meet him in person. They use middlemen. If Bruce gets into trouble, they'll get rid of him. If Aiden himself forcibly cuts off this tail, they will abandon Bruce and he will be left alone. Of course, then this huge force can come to kill our hero. Because if Aiden killed the middleman and not Bruce, it would mean he was getting too close to them. The hero replied that he didn't care. If there was a shortcut, he would take it. Watanabe thought so. She would tell Aiden. This may be his path to death. Some time passed. Sean informed Director Yoon that the bodies had been removed. The deaths of the two secretaries were ruled accidental. The families are not asking for an autopsy. Only one prosecutor is a bit of a nuisance. Kristen Stewart, so stubborn. I think Bruce has heard that name somewhere. Bribes won't work with her, but you can put pressure on the management to change the management. Sean also said that John was seriously hurt by Chris from Again. Chris has now opened the doors of Again and is preparing for something. John is no good. Bruce tells him to kill him. They drag him out, but he still gets punched in the face. Sean first asked why kill, and then quickly nodded. Bruce asked what was wrong with Stephanie. Director White said that her whereabouts were unknown, and Ree, the Japanese woman, had also disappeared. And Inspector Lim also said that this case is too complicated and he can't help anymore. Damn. Bruce asked what was wrong with the Namyangju boys. Sean said they were lying low. There was no way to locate them. The only one that can be tracked is Chris. Sean nodded and said that he demanded the return of Michael's body. Bruce calmly ordered it back. Director White didn't understand what that meant. Was it really that simple? Stephanie asked who this intermediary was that connected Bruce with that enormous power. Aiden said that since they knew, they should check. But Stephanie asked what if the bitch was lying. The hero replied that she expected them to kill her. She was not lying. Stephanie doubted that Aiden could handle it alone, but we have to try. However, it is her suggestion. After all, their common goal is Bruce. It would take strength to catch him, so Stephanie suggested teaming up. And at the same time, they will unite with again. Then something clicked in Aiden's head. He took the jacket and left, saying that he would go first. If he was going to the bar, Stephanie suggested they go together. It would be dark soon, and it would be easy to get lost. Meanwhile, Michael's body was brought to Chris. Sean said that it was humane. They were allowing him to have a funeral. Chris asked what he wanted. Director White replied, "Again, Michael's body is a good price for a bar." Chris said that the entire staff is being transferred to him. Now he's talking business. Sean suggested doing it right now. However, Chris will be speaking to Bruce personally. Deals are made with the owner, not a small fry like Sean. Director White got angry and wanted to hit. However, Bruce told him that there was only one chance. He would kill Chris when he met with Director Yun. So Sean gave up and said he'd be patient. The next day, Michael's funeral took place at the memorial house. Chris told his subordinate to get the sword from the storage room again, a sword that has been lying around unused for over 10 years. Let Michael take it and Chris will definitely sort everything out later. A crowd of fighters gathered outside Sean's bar. The director said everything was ready, but there were a lot of cameras in the funeral home. Bruce asked to turn them off, so he said not to worry and just kill everyone there, and most importantly, bring Chris's head. Sean said he could handle it. He got in the car and told everyone to get going. When Aiden and Stephanie arrived at again, the door was closed. Suddenly, she received a message about a sad event, Michael's funeral. There was an address of the farewell hall. There was already a yellow car parked near the memorial house and a girl was in it. She quickly typed in the code and turned off the cameras. Bruce was informed that the CCTV cameras had been turned off at the site and was asked if he could make it before dawn. We should make it. By the way, Bruce said that the one they sent is finished. He asked to send another mercenary. Insatiable. But if they decided to support Bruce, then let them do it properly. These people always clean up after him after such murders. It's just quite difficult to organize. Michael is dead. Stewart's gang is defeated, so there is no immediate threat now. Cheonyam are a bunch of cowards. Bruce recorded the entire conversation and played it on repeat. Stewart will soon recover. Then we can reproach them for their misjudgment and get something worthwhile from them. Stephanie was eating at the funeral home when Aiden saw a waiter from the bar on the way. Louis opened the door and walked into again. The hero followed him, and the guy said that this was the sword that boss Michael used before. Chris asked to bring it from the storage. Aiden saw the death message. Louis said that it would be better for the hero not to go. Stephanie looked at the guy and said that carrying something like that was a violation of the bladed weapons law. Louis brought Chris the sword and he placed it next to Michael's photo. And then Aiden walked in with Stephanie. Chris called him a freak and told him to get lost. Our hero could only say one word. Sorry. Aiden asked to be allowed to apologize. Chris said that if they weren't at the funeral, he would have given him a hard time. He wanted Aiden to go away because he was sick to look at. Chris told me again not to mess with them or I'll get into trouble. Did he treat Aiden badly? He transferred money to his account and paid for the phone, and he screwed him over. If it weren't for Aiden, Michael wouldn't have died. Stephanie suddenly intervened. She told me to filter my words. Not a betrayal, but a miscalculation. In the end, everything should have been covered up. It was just bad luck. Chris replied that he was currently restraining himself with the last of his strength at the funeral, so he shouldn't interfere. The man told him to get lost again. He didn't need any help from Aiden. Stephanie and our hero went into the hall. She asked if he was leaving. Aiden needs to be forgiven. The girl said it wasn't the time. Better come later when Chris had cooled down. Stephanie says to do as she says. They will eat Chanma together, gain power, and then Chris will reckon with them. Even with their asses up, they'll have to unite. She doesn't think Chris will take revenge on his own. That's the logic of force. Aiden responded that Chris shouldn't be treated like that. Stephanie is shocked by this slow-witted person. But the conversation was interrupted by shouts from the funeral room. Stephanie looked out the window and said there was some noise upstairs. A crowd of men with guns has gathered in the VIP room where Michael's funeral is taking place. Chris asks what's wrong. We should have made the arrangements with Bruce in person. Sean replied with a cheeky smile that he had simply come to express his condolences. Chris told his people to throw out all the relatives and guests. Does he really think he can get away with it? Chris asks if Sean is planning on killing innocents too. Oh, come on, what is he talking about? Director White will kill every single one of them. Stephanie and Aiden approached the elevator, but two big guys chased them away. And when they reached the stairs, they too were completely blocked by a crowd of men. This was the second floor. The VIP room is on the fifth. If you attack on the way up, it will take a little longer. Aiden told Stephanie to stay close to him as they climbed. Our hero rushed into the crowd of big guys. Chris and his fighters began to pour out on the enemies. However, unfortunately, he was hit on the back, but one of his subordinates covered it with his body. He told Chris that they would break through the fire escape. They needed to protect the family. Sean laughs and asks what he's struggling with, what he's going to do here. Chris stepped back and bumped into that very sword. He quickly grabbed it and said that it was a real sword, so it was better not to approach. However, this did not frighten Sean at all. They swung at Chris. He tried to remove the cover from the sword, but it was as if it was glued on. The subordinate pushed Chris away to protect him, but was himself fatally struck in the back. Sean lit a cigarette and offered in a friendly manner, but he was distracted by screams from the back of the room. All the hulks standing at the entrance to the VIP room were dead, and among their bodies, as always cold and distant, stood Aiden. The hero asked Sean if he was the one who sent those people that day. They killed his sister too. Principal White chuckled wryly. Well, yeah, Aiden is interested. Sean told the fighters to step back for a second and moved closer. He says Aiden's sister worked at a bar, got recruited, and then committed suicide, that's all. The hero looked as if he was waiting for a continuation. Did he really think that Sean would chew everything in detail? Principal White told the idiot to find out for himself. Oh yeah, he can tell about his mother. The daughter wanted a microphone, signed a contract, and the mother had to work off the debt. So she shook and died, both mother and daughter, both without a spark. Why did they die so easily? Sean didn't understand what was wrong with Aiden. Maybe he was scared. His face didn't flinch. Okay, anyway, the man waved it off. Aiden was going to die here too. The big guys surrounded the hero. He said that they probably have parents too. Aiden grabbed the club tightly and said that if they wanted to live, they should get out of here. They just laughed at what he was saying. Then the hero knocked the clubs out of their hands with just one movement. And then he started hitting one after another right on the head. Sean shouts to the rest of his subordinates to attack, but they all meet the same fate. It's not a sword, it's a blunt iron pipe, but Aiden somehow pierces the enemy's body. Sean shouts at the others not to retreat and fight, but the fear instilled in the fighters grows more and more. Suddenly, one of the men was hit with that same sword case. Chris ran limping and telling his men to help Aiden. While both sides fought each other, the hero approached Sean. That girl in the car was speaking English on the phone. No matter what, we have to save our own. For now, our own. She says she will wait another 20 minutes. That will be enough. However, the man asked if everything will be okay. He knows what Natasha is capable of, but what if there are problems later? The girl replied that there was just a fire in the building. No more, no less, so there is no need to worry. Meanwhile, in the funeral hall, the floor was covered in blood and all the decorations were scattered. Chris was cornered and surrounded, and his strength to fight was waning. Aiden killed the last thug who was covering Sean. Principal White was furious and demanded that the others hold Aiden, but no one dared. Suddenly, someone shouted that Chris had been caught. Sean smiled sarcastically. He said, just try to move, see what happens. They dragged a half-dead Chris to him. Sean took the sword and asked if it really belonged to Michael. However, it was not removed from the case. Whatever. Principal White told Aiden to throw his pipe. The hero obediently did so. Sean smiled smugly and told him to kneel down. At that moment, Aiden was hit on the back, and then the rest of the crowd joined in. The hero protected his face with his hands. However, he was beaten with pipes on his back, head, face, and legs. Sean was glad that this bastard was finally caught and ordered to put him in jail. Will both mother and son die at his hands? Is that also fate? Aiden glared at the man. At that moment, Chris ran up to Sean and grabbed the sword. Naturally, he was thrown back, but he managed to snatch the sword. He fell, throwing his katana at Aiden's feet. Chris could barely speak, but he tried to apologize to the hero. While Chris was being beaten, he screamed that Aiden had killed them all. The hero took the sword, leaned on it, and began to stand up. The task was accepted. But as we already understood, the sword did not open. However, Aiden tore off a small nub from the handle. And after that, he exposed the blade of the katana. Sean, confused, shouts at his subordinates to grab this bastard. But before the men can do anything, Aiden chops off their heads with one swing. With a sword in his hands, he doesn't care if thousands come. It's worth removing just a few and the weight will scatter. Aiden began to cut down Sean's fighters. The rest began to scatter in all directions. A river of blood spilled across the floor. The white walls turned burgundy. Sean realizes that things are clearly not going according to plan. Aiden cut down those who were holding Chris. If this guy picks up a real sword, just one man can change the world. Sean backed away in fear, waving the pipe and telling them not to come closer. He shouted at the hidden fighters to quickly return here. Sean even threw one of the guys to be torn apart by Aiden. Literally a second later, there was nothing left of the guy. Sean fell to his knees and threw the pipe down. He said that if Aiden killed him, he would be making things worse for himself. He can also tell what happened to his sister. There is something the hero does not know, and he can easily introduce him to Bruce. Aiden lowered his sword. Yes, yes. Sean smiled and repeated that killing him now was a bad decision. And suddenly he was already looking at his severed hand. Principal White screamed at the top of his lungs in horror. This bastard even had the audacity to come and pitifully tell her that he couldn't protect Chloe. Aiden cut out his vile, merciless tongue. Then, thinking about his sister and mother, he hit Sean in the back. And finally, he chopped his vile head in half. Aiden's hands are stained with blood, but his path to revenge has finally begun. The girl in the car waited for the right moment, pressed the button, and thereby activated the explosion. A strong earthquake began in the memorial house. Stephanie ran in and told the boys to run quickly. Aiden broke the glass so the boys could jump down to the entrance. Chris jumped in first and asked if Stephanie was okay. What does she care about the second floor? They're going straight to the villa anyway, so she told them to start the car. Chris said the skirt was so short that you could see everything from the bottom. Stephanie tossed him her shoes, smiled, and told him he was lucky today. After that, she jumped without a second thought. And only when Aiden was sure that everyone was at the exit, he jumped himself at the moment of the explosion. The news reported that a major fire of unknown origin occurred at Crematorium A in the city of Kanam. The building was completely destroyed. Although the crematorium had only one room for farewells, at the time of the fire, relatives of the deceased were there, as a result of which 7 people were injured, including fatalities. Police are investigating the exact cause of the fire. While Bruce was listening to the news, he received a call. A timid voice came from the end of the line. Director Yoon asked how many people were actually injured. About 50 people. Bruce asked if Chris had survived. He was told that the whole building was locked, but Chris broke the glass and escaped. And it wasn't just any glass. Bruce did as the elders said. In the end, Sean is dead, Chris is alive, the director's power is weakened, and the enemies are still alive. How can Bruce rely on them now? The man on the other end of the line apologized, saying that they would fix the problem without any problem. You can express dissatisfaction with wrong decisions and then get something big. Bruce smiled and said that he now wanted to make direct contact, namely with Hiksu. The interlocutor was surprised and replied that it was dangerous. They did not want to meet Bruce directly. Do they really think he's not on their level? The man won't deny it, but Bruce isn't ready to handle their power yet. It could cost him his life. Bruce told the mediator that he was born a man and that risking his life on his way was natural. If he can withstand this power, people will begin to look at him differently and his influence will expand. Those who are afraid of failure remain under someone all their lives, and those like Bruce destroy the old order and move forward. He believes that this is the law of nature. If Director Yoon thinks so, the middleman won't stop him. He hopes he can break through. Catherine barged into one of the customers, calling him a crazy dog. Because of him, someone almost committed suicide again. Does a man really think it's that easy to bring girls here? And especially to sign up for such torture and horrors? The man suddenly stood up from the bath completely naked. He said in English to give him something interesting. Catherine smiled and threw the tablet at his feet, showing Bruce. The girl said that he was overconfident in wanting to meet Hiksu directly. Catherine told the man to bait him and finish the job nicely. He replied that he would figure it out in 30 seconds. Catherine was seeing the man off when suddenly Kate was walking towards her wearing a mask. The man asked who it was. He hadn't seen her before. Kim Jong-un, special order. Catherine said not to touch this girl. They will need her later. What is it? When the man came here to settle business, what was the condition of the reward? Unlimited access to girls from Club B, that is endless. Catherine sighed heavily. She said to sort out the case first and the reward later. Okay, now they speak the same language. Stephanie brought the heroes to the villa, a temporary refuge. The girl asked Noah if everything had been cleaned up yet. Yes, wild animals carried off and most likely already ate the Japanese woman. The guy handed over her passport. Watanabe. Noah said it was a fake passport. Anyway, he did as Stephanie said and made contact. Chris looked at her questioningly. In short, someone was covering for Bruce Yun. There is a middleman between them. If he is eliminated, the patrons will get rid of Bruce. They won't want to reveal themselves. It's easier to eliminate him. That's the scheme. But first, the wounds should be treated. Stephanie could call a doctor. Chris replied that it was nothing, just some ointment. But as soon as he rubbed his face with his hand, blood flowed like a fountain. Stephanie said everything was fine. She offered to look and asked where the laptop was. Noah said that communication was carried out only through the program TheCat Plus. Looking at the message, there was only some incomprehensible set of letters and numbers. And then Aiden read, "In 2 days, Saigon Station, Line 1, Exit 4, 7 p.m. Get in the van." According to Wanabere's transcript, it must be so. Stephanie asks what's wrong with her. They listen together, but she herself doesn't remember anything. Then Chris said that they would meet the day after tomorrow. A man from Club B arrived at one of the local VIP bars. Inside, he was met by a crowd of big guys. The sign was turned off, they weren't working. But then the man who brought the guest said that the representative wanted to meet, but the guards were not told that there were 2 of them. The man pushed those who did not let him in. He asked to close the elevator door and dragged 2 guards inside. And as soon as the door opened a couple of seconds later, there was nothing left of the guards. The club workers were alarmed when suddenly one of them received a call. Anyway, they said we could come in. The guy wiped his hands on the worker's shirt and walked away. Entering the hall, he saw Bruce drinking. Director Yun raised his head and said that this was the ugly foreigner and clearly not the one he wanted to meet. The man in the suit said that Hiksu did not wish to come in person. Aiden approached Chris on the porch, trampling dozens of steers. Chris wanted to talk, but he just stood there smoking for 20 minutes. He doesn't want to know what's going on. Suddenly, Aiden looked up at the sky and said the stars were beautiful. They say that after death, people become stars. The hero wondered what his mother and sister had become. Aiden isn't a kid anymore. Chris doesn't mean to sound disrespectful, but suddenly a soft smile began to appear on our hero's face. Chris couldn't imagine that he could make such a face. Aiden smiled and nodded. When he and the man first met, the hero was drunk and out of control. After that, Chris wondered if he was a psychopath. But that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems that Aiden has his limits too. The hero replied that he lost control because the man mentioned his mother. Chris asked how Aiden was with the weapon. He didn't even know there was a lock on it. The hero replied that the sword was good, heavy, sharp, with almost no damage to the blade. Plus, it was of the highest quality. But everything has an owner. Chris timidly asked if Aiden had ever killed anyone with a sword. The hero replied that no, but he wielded it so easily that Chris was surprised. In any case, those bastards deserved to die. In response, Aiden said that he gave up his human form when he chose this path. If that was all, he suggested they go inside, but Chris continued smoking. He thinks that Aiden will eventually punish Bruce, and the man asked what would happen next. The hero replied that he had to pay for his crimes. Surrender, then this is the only way. Chris said that after Bruce's fall, someone will take his place. He will have to watch all of this. Aiden smiled and replied that he wasn't interested in a power struggle. He just wanted revenge. But suddenly, Chris wants to take Bruce's place. At least before Aiden gives in, he'll give his friend a gift. Chris looked at the guy carefully. Out of nowhere, the ever-serious Aiden began to wonder what kind of stars his mother and sister had become. Did he really have something special in mind? So a killer was brought to Bruce for a meeting. The man disappointed him. He thought they could have a conversation. The middleman said that if Director Yun passed this test, Hyuksu would meet with him in person. Bruce asked with a smile if he was really that strong. The broker said this S-rank American had probably killed hundreds. Seriously, they're going to try to kill Bruce. He asked about the test. Hyuksu started supporting Director Yun after the transfer of Gold Trading Company. It's not easy to raise someone like him. He doesn't want Bruce to leave his post because he has big plans, but only when there is no suspicion. Bruce said not to forget where the man is. It seems he suddenly wants to be equal. The mediator replied that it was possible. The fighter asked in English when they would fight and why they were talking so much. The American asked if Bruce was threatening. He doesn't know his place. The intermediary answered him in English that it seemed so. The fighter wanted to end it, but the man advised him not to underestimate Bruce. He was a former judo champion. The American replied that sport was no different from a real fight. Bruce would die today. Director Yun offered me a drink. The intermediary translated. The last meal before death? Okay, the American doesn't mind. Suddenly Bruce spoke. First of all, Hyuksu didn't raise him, he made himself. Secondly, they are just pawns. Bruce finished his cognac and threw a glass at the American, and then he attacked him with his fists. Finally, the guy got inspired. He said that Bruce was tired of living and such cheap tricks wouldn't work. The fighter waited for the right moment to attack, but Director Yun twisted his arm and threw him over his back onto the floor. And then, with a disdainful look, he straightened his sleeves. Bruce told the American to get up, he was fine. Wow, the foreigner didn't expect it to be so much fun. It's beyond his imagination. Bruce asked what the guy was mumbling about. Okay, now he deserved to die at his hands. The American turned the table over and threw it at the wall, and then he said that this place should be enough for the two of them. The intermediary translated for Bruce, asking how he liked this space. Director Yun said to do what he wanted. The alien turned into a monster and attacked Bruce. Meanwhile, late in the evening, Catherine drove up to a man's house. She went inside and sat down on the sofa. The young man said that he needed to step away. The man picked up the boy and raised him. They say he is blind in one eye. The old man says it is a prosthesis. The boy takes out the eye and puts it back in. Catherine asked if he could go to the battlefield. The man said no, not yet. It wasn't about skill, it was about control. Even if it's true, it will be difficult. The man asked what was going on. They know that mad English dog. Catherine says he's out of control. She gave him a little task this time, but she thinks to get rid of him as soon as he returns. The old man said that then his boy would be even worse. Catherine said that Xiao Ming is coming soon. After that, it will be Kaolin. Kaolin is also mad, but at least he doesn't wear out girls like a total bastard. This guy is too busy making girls who want to report him kill themselves. This bastard keeps killing all the fun of Catherine. Then the old man asked why she doesn't leave it to Kaolin. A mad dog like him would most likely be interested. It's not that Xiaomin will come now, but that after he leaves, he will come back later. Plus, they'll create a new route to the pharmacy and it'll be hard for Catherine to use. She asks if there's a way out. The man thought and said that he would soon go to Osaka. Also, Catherine showed a photo of the hero. Someone appeared who uses a long sword and it is quite a big headache. He cuts people down without a second thought. From what Catherine's men found, he's that Chloe girl's brother. She's dead. Chloe made a scene saying she'd report Club B, so Bruce brought her in and worked on her. After that, it seems her brother came for revenge. He is a kendo champion and has now taken up a real sword. Catherine asked if it was a good idea to drag Yuta into this. Otherwise, the guy would be a liability. The old man asked about Watanabe. Catherine said she sent the access code but could not confirm her status. The man, whose name turned out to be Lyota, said he would check everything on his way to Osaka and inform Catherine. The American lunged at Bruce, but he grabbed his fist and held it. Director Yun asked if his level was really that bad that they would send someone like him. Bruce pulled the guy's hand towards himself and punched him with his other fist. That's how he broke the American's arm. Afterwards, Director Yun grabbed the boy's head and twisted it. This time, he won't escape Bruce. The director picked up a piece of broken glass from the floor and hit the guy in the eye. And finally, as the decisive blow, he slammed his head into the floor. Bruce did say that he is much stronger than people think, and the proof lies right at your feet. Catherine was about to leave when her phone rang. Something she heard shocked her. She asked the person if he was nearby. In any case, it was not a phone from Korea, it must be an international call. Let's say he's abroad and will be back in 5 days, so they'll agree on what will happen next. But for now, let him think about it. Catherine put her phone down when she suddenly saw the face of the guy with the eye in the window. She rolled down the window and asked him what the hell he was doing. The guy asked if she would come out. Catherine said to tell Lyota that the plan had changed, to leave the mad dog alone and just hire Yuta. The girl left. The guy watched her go with a creepy smile. Stephanie looked at the laptop and asked what it was. Aiden read the code. It said that everything had changed, so contact was currently prohibited. And when did the plan go wrong? Chris wondered if they should just wait. Stephanie, seeing him, immediately changed her expression and asked if she could ask for something while they waited. Chris asked if she was talking about the construction of Chonma. As expected, he hit the nail on the head. Stephanie offers to absorb and grow Guanghun again. Aiden immediately asked how the shares would be split. Stephanie thought about it nervously, then suggested 50-50. The hero asked if this would suit Chris. The man asked if this was what Aiden was offering him. The hero wants to create a foundation for Chris. He said it was too much for him. Then Stephanie asked how about 1/3. Chris immediately replied that half of it was okay. Stephanie got angry at him, saying that he was the same way at the funeral. The plane landed at the airport, and the man walked up to the sign with his name on it, Xiaoming. The assistant showed him where to go and put him in the car. The boss called Tom and told him to retreat. The guy was surprised they were following Cole. Nolan told him to go with Pak Peng Chen instead. Tom agreed but asked what had happened. The boss said that Song Taesong and Young Ma had rebelled against Hwang Seok-hyun from the 12th Board of Directors. The chairman said that they had to keep an eye on him immediately. Tom was told not to rush. It must be remembered that intervention is only necessary when Cole's safety is at risk. Tom said he understood and hung up. Well, the calm before the storm has already arrived. Xiao Ming met with Catherine in the observation room of Club B. The Chinese man asked if it was true. Bruce had crossed the line. The girl asked what they should do. If Bruce had just stayed still, he would have fixed it himself. But he was probably in a hurry. And then Xiao Ming suddenly remembered something. Catherine had told him that among Bruce's enemies there was a guy who wielded a sword. Yeah, he was caught in a fire at a funeral home. The bodies there looked like they'd been slashed with a knife. Xiao Ming said to let this guy take revenge. If everything is arranged for this, he will most likely finish it. Catherine said that he is a kendo champion and probably does it for his little sister. Xiao Ming asked who she was. Bruce brought Chloe here. She became addicted and was experimented on several times. It was discovered too late. She made a fuss and threatened to report it, so Bruce had to take action. Xiao Ming said that if Catherine knew the circumstances, she would also want to kill Madame. In any case, it would be better to get rid of it once the job is done. Catherine said they also need to prepare for the eventuality of Bruce winning. Xiao Ming replied that if two people fight and one of them falls, it doesn't matter in the end who wins. We just need to get rid of the last one. The man asked who would be best suited for this task. Catherine called Yuta Shinsuke. She already told Leota. Xiao Ming smiled wryly, saying that it was perfect. John Han was informed that a visitor in room 7 wanted to speak with him. They will wear masks during the conversation. The person offering the conversation is a Chinese native who speaks fluent Korean. He's looking for investment and sponsor. Do they really think that investment is so easy, just call and that's it? John Han refuses. But that Chinese guy said it would help him. He would give John Han 1 billion won just for talking. Safety is guaranteed at the club, and here John Han had no reason to refuse. They met with Xiao Ming wearing masks. The Chinese thanked them for agreeing to talk to him. It was fate that they met like this, so Xiao Ming wanted to help. John Han laughed and asked how to help. They didn't even know each other. In fact, Xiao Ming knows that the former president is a member of the National Assembly. John Han stood up abruptly and asked who said that. The Chinese man said that he had found out for himself, but John Han shouldn't worry. Xiao Ming is generally a fan of his. He was an ardent supporter of the congressman. It was heartbreaking when John Han was pulled out of the party leadership for the last time. Xiao Ming asked if it was because bandits like Ben took advantage of his weakness. Live or die, Ben can do whatever he wants. Xiao Ming asks. Wasn't it clear that the company was revived thanks to Ben's deals? John Han asked who was in front of him. The Chinese man laughed and said not to worry about it. As a strong supporter, how can he see that Zhang Han is being used by criminals? It's also because of Do Yun's group. Xiao Ming took out a suitcase and put it on the table. He asked John Han what he thought about getting rid of Do Hyun. In the suitcase was a pen and a notebook with the logo of Club B. Xiao Ming said that everyone who uses items with this logo is similar, and let the president not look at the notes. John Han asked what it was. This is political financing. But the congressman asked, shouldn't this be done under the political financing law? The Chinese replied that it would not work. This is a development plan for Indonesia. John Han stopped at one of the pages. This is a business plan to modernize Indonesia. This is just the first page. Doesn't he want to know what's on the next page? Xiao Ming asked why John Han didn't form a delegation and see what happened. He can get orders from Korean companies. If a member of the National Assembly can do what the president can't, then John Han may have a chance in the next presidential election. The president of Chung Ma's construction company. Kyle asked how things were going with Bruce lately. Captain Warren responded that Sean White was dead and that the region's leadership was changing internally. It would be quiet for a while. Company Vice President Jared added that Gwanghyung was destroyed, and there has been no movement from them since then. Sales Director Chung Ma Leah said that neither Bruce nor Gwanghyung are taking any action, and she suggested that her colleagues act first. When Bruce organizes his forces, Chung Ma is his next target, so why should they sit idly by? Jared suggested starting with dinner because the place was far away and the restaurants closed early. Stephanie was already keeping a close eye on Chung Ma's office from the car. Chris asked if they were really going to go just the 4 of them. Stephanie said they should go out to eat somewhere soon. She said to go out quickly and beat them up, but most importantly, keep Kyle safe. Chris asks if this isn't a bit thoughtless. What about CCTV? Oh my God, where does he get such random thoughts all of a sudden? Stephanie said that Chung Ma does a lot of illegal stuff, so it can't be that they have cameras installed. She saw that the entire top of Chung Ma had settled into their cars. Stephanie told him to go, and Noah put the gas pedal to the floor. Chon Ma started the car, and while they were thinking about which restaurant to go to, they were hit from the front. They shouted that it was an ambush, and all the fighters got out of the cars. Our heroes also got out of the car, and their special weapon is Aiden. John Han took the envelope and asked why the Chinese man was doing this for him. Xiaoming and his people found out that even if John Han had intact power within the party, he is still being pushed aside by Chu Un-san of the younger generation in the race for the presidency. John Han needs to take a big step and become a presidential candidate. He believes that this is not the only goal. Xiaoming doesn't want to burden him now. It would be good if John Han listened to his request after he got up to a comfortable position. The Chinese will put it there. The man, of course, is completely confused. Xiaoming then suggested that they drink a glass to their joint victory. Of course, the glass that John Han drinks from then will contain poison. He put the pen away and said his ambitions were greater than that. Xiaoming smiled and said that he would not regret it at all. So they decided to do it together. Aiden began to attack the Changma leadership. Chris also fought in hand-to-hand combat, most notably with Warren Kyle's bodyguard. And Stephanie went up to the car where sales director Leah was hiding and smashed the glass with a brick. Stephanie ripped the earring from her ear. She told Noah to take Kyle and bring him here. Stephanie stood proudly next to Aiden and said that if any of the fighters came near, they would be finished. It seems like Kyle can't get over the fact that he was beaten by a girl. Cheonma will serve Guangheng from today. Stephanie asked rhetorically if there were any dissenters. But suddenly the bodyguard Warren was able to escape. Kyle said they would call for backup and asked if she thought they could win with 4 people. Suddenly, Stephanie told Noah to let him go. Just 4 people? Okay, she told him to stand in front of her. Then there will be only one person fighting Kyle and his fighters. If he loses, he will leave his business to Guang Hyun without further ado and will be under her control. The fighters were outraged by this bitch's words. Does she really want 26 people to fight just one guy? Stephanie asked what Kyle thought. He responded by asking what if he won. The girl replied that then he could do whatever he wanted with her, make her his toy or kill her. Kyle agreed and Aiden made the first move towards his fighters. Meanwhile, Warren ran to Bruce's office and told him that, as expected, Guang Hong attacked Chung Ma. Their forces include Stephanie, Chris, Noah, and that guy with the iron pipe whose name Warren doesn't know. Bruce knows him, he's the kendo guy. With Director White dead and K Entertainment short on management staff, Director Yun told Warren to stop spying and stay here. Someone will arrive within a few days and make a big deal. With that level of skill, it was definitely a hindrance for the Black Sea. Bruce doesn't have to remove them in advance and make it easy for the Black Sea. As expected, Aiden single-handedly dealt with all the enemies. Kyle couldn't hide his panic and horror. Today in the office, Leah said that they would be Bruce's next target, so they couldn't sit back. No matter how much Kyle thought about it, he didn't have an answer. Because Director Yun is too strong. But right now in front of him stands that very answer with a bloody iron pipe. Stephanie sat with Kyle in the office. She agreed because he suddenly said he wanted to negotiate after he was beaten. Kyle seems ready to cause trouble. He said not to attack until ordered. Stephanie suddenly looked at Chris and said that he should sit next to her. Kyle has a rule about not dealing with people who wear skirts. Stephanie wants someone with pants. She asked if it was okay for them to be partners. Even though the girl is young, she speaks so informally to Kyle. Stephanie asked if he had anything to say. To be honest, Kyle was debating whether he should fight Bruce or surrender. He tried to contact the 12 directions of Do-hyun, but they all avoided him because it was the coal region, so there was nothing Kyle could do. Bruce is a demon, and to catch a demon, you need another demon. Kyle pointed to the friend behind Stephanie. In his opinion, Aiden is a demon who will catch Bruce Yun. Stephanie will see this as them being strong. If Kyle had a friend like that, he would rely on him too. That's why the man suggests joining forces. But Stephanie asked where his bodyguard Warren was. Kyle said he was with Bruce. Warren was a plant. When Bruce Yuen expanded his power, he said he wanted to go to him because of his unstable position. That seems like a legitimate reason. So this guy was always a spy. Kyle said Bruce wasn't kidding either. If it's him, he'll definitely use Warren to get information about Chanma's insiders and then make his move. Stephanie asked if Kyle used Warren to get Bruce out. That's right. Her friend can hit hard. Aiden is a real sword. A fist cannot defeat a sword. Kate was already waiting for John Han in the room, but he said he wanted to be alone today. The girl put on a mask and went out. The man called Catherine. She thought he wanted another girl, but no. John Han thinks that he needs to be careful now because there is a lot of work coming up soon. And when you move to do something, it's good to clean up the environment. They will follow him everywhere to try to find the only flaws. So Catherine asked if he was going to come to Club B anymore. John Han suggested putting it off for a while. And about Kate, if he's accidentally running for president, will something suddenly appear? It seems that Club B is taking advantage of his weakness. Catherine said that for them, customers come first, and if it causes inconvenience, they can remove the evidence. Madam asked if John Hannah would be okay with them killing Kate and sending a photo. What terrible things, she says. A photo like this would be too much. The man just wants to never meet Kate again. Catherine asked if he wanted a full erasure. The man replied that he had not said that. Fine, the club would take care of everything. And one more thing. John Han won't mind even if Catherine acts ahead. The lady hung up and laughed. Politicians are crazy. Catherine was informed over the loudspeaker that Kate was releasing John Hannah from the special reserve. Catherine reiterated that Mr. John Han's special reservation had been canceled. One of the doormen received an order and took a bottle of pills. He approached Kate and told her that she had to meet a new client, but first she needed to take some painkillers. The doorman handed over a bottle of water and a packet of pills. The girl became wary. The guy said that the next client will have different tastes and he might be a little disappointed. And these pills will help to forget the pain for a while. After some time, Catherine asked her colleagues what was going on with that girl. The man replied that she had already lost her temper and had been given painkillers in advance. Catherine saw Kate lying on the floor being beaten with a rod and told the staff to take her away. Meanwhile, Leah brought out the board for further discussion. Now Warren will bring Bruce to fight Chanma. Therefore, the fact that Gwang Hyung and Young Ma have joined forces may not be known. Stephanie said it might have worked if Kyle had been threatened by Gwang Hung. The man replied that he would prefer to be locked in, or at least pretend to be locked in. So Leah laid out the scenario. Kyle would be in custody. In order to save him, Director Jared and she are chosen to contact Warren. Warren expresses his intention to surrender to Bruce if Chung Ma's squad deals with Gwang Hung. Stephanie understood, but asked who would be freed and how. Since they were on the subject, Kyle said it had to be Leah. Jared was supportive, that would be good. She'd probably have an easier time with it than he did. Stephanie then asked where they were going to lure Bruce and if they should do it here. Kyle says that if she wants to be sure, it's best to go to a place away from the city center. He suggested luring him to the staples of Chongma's building materials. There are orchards and a lot of trees around. It is a concrete building that is closed from the outside, so it is impossible to get out from the inside. There are 200 square meters inside with all kinds of building materials and machines scattered around. But Chongma's people know what's inside. Stephanie can't contain her joy that she will finally be able to kill Bruce. Well, she said there was no need to mess with those guys. Stephanie looked at Aiden. Wasn't the wish granted? Kyle said that they need to set a trap because Bruce Yun is smart. Chris asked what would happen after Bruce died. After all, we need to get rid of all the guys who are under him. Stephanie would think about it. She suggested just breaking it up between the three of them. Kyle exchanged glances with Leah. Was it because Stephanie was young and naive? Of course she will be next.